a lesson learned. On the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. The Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul, where the love of learning makes us whole. May every step bring us closer to the truth. On the Mishnah walk, with hearts like roots. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. Rabbi Akiva's teachings are guiding light. Raki Avot's wisdom shining bright. The old Torah treasure to share. On the Mishnah walk, we're all aware. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. From tractate to tractate we roam, unpacking the meaning, making it our home. In the words of the sages we find our way. On the Mishnah walk, every single day. Mishnah walk, every single day. The Mishnah walk, every single day. Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. The Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul, where the love of learning makes us whole. May every step bring us closer to the truth. On the Mishnah walk, with hearts like roots. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. Rabbi Akiva's teachings are guiding light. Raki Avot's wisdom shining bright. The old Torah treasure to share. On the Mishnah walk, we're all aware. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. From tractate to tractate we roam, unpacking the meaning, making it our home. In the words of the sages we find our way. On the Mishnah walk, every single day. Mishnah walk, every single day. The Mishnah walk, every single day. Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. The Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul, where the love of learning makes us whole. May every step bring us closer to the truth. On the Mishnah walk, with hearts like roots. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. Rabbi Akiva's teachings are guiding light. Raki Avot's wisdom shining bright. The old Torah treasure to share. On the Mishnah walk, we're all aware. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. From tractate to tractate we roam, unpacking the meaning, making it our home. In the words of the sages we find our way. On the Mishnah walk, every single day. Mishnah walk, every single day. The Mishnah walk, every single day. Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. The Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul, where the love of learning makes us whole. May every step bring us closer to the truth. On the Mishnah walk, with hearts like roots. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the mission walk, wisdom is yearned. Rabbi Akiva's teachings a guiding light, Raki Avot's wisdom shining bright. Through Torah, treasure to share, on the mission walk, we're all aware. A mission walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the mission walk, wisdom is yearned. From tractate to tractate we roam, unpacking the meaning, making it our home. In the words of the sages we find our way, on the mission walk, every single day. Mission walk, every single day. The mission walk, every single day. Mission walk, a journey of the soul. We'll mission walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the mission walk, wisdom is yearned. The mission walk, a journey of the soul, where the love of learning makes us whole. May every step bring us closer to the truth, on the Mishnah walk, with hearts like roots. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. Rabbi Akiva's teachings a guiding light, Raki Avot's wisdom shining bright. Through Torah, treasure to share, on the Mishnah walk, we're all aware. A Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. From tractate to tractate we roam, unpacking the meaning, making it our home. In the words of the sages we find our way, on the Mishnah walk, every single day. Mishnah walk, every single day. The Mishnah walk, every single day. Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. The Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul, where the love of learning makes us whole. May every step bring us closer to the truth, on the Mishnah walk, with hearts like roots. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. Rabbi Akiva's teachings a guiding light, Raki Avot's wisdom shining bright. Through Torah, treasure to share, on the Mishnah walk, we're all aware. A Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. From tractate to tractate we roam, unpacking the meaning, making it our home. In the words of the sages we find our way, on the Mishnah walk, every single day. Mishnah walk, every single day. The Mishnah walk, every single day. Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. The Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul, where the love of learning makes us whole. May every step bring us closer to the truth, on the Mishnah walk, with hearts like roots.
Shabbat Tov.
You are muted, Rabbi.
שבוע מבורך. How are you guys doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Can
We
you hear the
can.
background noise?
Nope. Just
Nope.
here.
Very good. Toda lael.
Tell them to hold it down.
Well, I have some big news to share with everybody.
Oh,
It's Hebrew today.
but with a little twist, I think, right? We're gonna or
Yeah.
more focus, I hope. Yeah.
Your word for the day is sheket. Means
Check it.
quiet. Yeah. Shh.
Oh,
Shake
that
it
check
good.
it.
Yeah. Da, 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 da. All right, you ready? Let's go. Let's start. Hmm. Oh. Wadaya b'chavod. We're our prayer before we begin.
Yehi ratzon milefanecha Adonai Elohai. I am grateful for you, O Eternal, the powerful authority over me. Shelo akoshel bidvar halacha, that I shall not stumble in a matter of Jewish law. Shelo omar al tameh tohor, that I shall not say regarding that which is impure that is pure, al tahor tameh, and regarding that which is pure that it is impure. Al mutar asur, and regarding that which is permitted that is forbidden. Al asur mutar, and regarding that which is forbidden that it is permitted. Al ekoshel bidvar halacha, and I shall not stumble in a matter of Jewish law. Vayismehu bi havarai, and my friends shall rejoice with me. Al yikashalu havarai bidvar halacha, and my friends shall not stumble in a matter of Jewish law. Esmah bahem, and I shall rejoice with
And you
them.
hear us on male as well. Okay. Beginning with proactive commandment number 41. I hope this doesn't lock up.
And we should be stopping at 52 today, because Victor noticed that we were off of how we should be if we're doing 13 every week. So
Okay. I don't know. Who would make that happen?
There's a list printed out.
As I
There's
told
a list
Victor,
printed.
nobody
Say what?
accused it. I was telling Victor, nobody accused us of being smart or good at math.
That's right. All right. Let's begin. Number 41 in the book of the 613 conditions of God's everlasting covenant with Israel.
To offer an additional sacrifice every Shabbat, as Numbers chapter 28, verse 9 states, on the Sabbath day, 2 lambs.
And that is why we have an additional community prayer on Shabbat to correspond to that commandment of an additional sacrifice, because the heart of every sacrifice is your heart, right? All right, Miswah Haba'a.
42, to offer an additional sacrifice every Rosh Chodesh, as
New moon.
Numbers. Sorry.
New moon. Rosh Chodesh
Yes.
is new moon.
Thank you. As Numbers 28:11 states, on your Rashi Kodashim.
Right, on your new moons, you shall offer an additional offering. So likewise, on new moons, we, just as on Shabbat, will offer an additional prayer, just as we would offer an additional sacrifice in the temple. May it be rebuilt speedily in our days. Number 43, to offer an additional offering on Pesach, Passover, as Leviticus 23, verse 36 states, for 7 days you will bring a fire offering unto God. And as we read these, when we see something transliterated into Hebrew, let's express it in English as well, if we can.
Ani haba'ah. To bring the meal offering of the Omer on the day after the first day of Pesach, together with a single lamb, as Leviticus chapter 23, verse 10 states, and you shall bring the Omer.
All right, an omer is a sheaf. It's a bundle of grain. Right, so when we see a Hebrew transliterated to English, let's translate it as well to English.
To offer
If you guys are unsure what it means, just speak up in the middle. You can be like, and what is Shavuot? And we'll translate it.
to offer an additional sacrifice on Shavuot, which is weeks or Feast of
Right.
Weeks.
Commonly referred to as Pentecost.
Numbers 28:26 states, on the day of the first fruits, Bikurim.
Right. Bikurim refers to first fruits. To bring 2 loaves and the offerings which accompany those loaves on Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, the pilgrimage festival of weeks, as Leviticus chapter 23, verse 17 states, from your dwellings bring bread as a wave offering, and you shall offer upon the bread.
To offer an additional sacrifice on Rosh Hashanah, the new year, as Numbers chapter 29, verse 1 states, and in the 7th month on the 1st of the month.
All right, and Rosh Hashanah in the Torah is called the appointed time or the holiday of blastings or of shouts. Yom Teruah, and that word Teruah that it is called in the book of Leviticus is a word that can refer both to the blast of the shofar or to a loud shout of a crowd of people. So that word has more than one reference.
Anihaba, to offer an additional sacrifice on the fast of Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, as Numbers 29:7 states, on the 10th of the 7th month.
Right. I'm next. All right. To carry out the service of the fast of Yom Kippurim, the Day of Atonement, as Leviticus chapter 16, verse 3 states, in this manner, Aharon, that is the brother of Moses, will enter the inner sanctuary with the young bull. All the particulars of this service are stated in Parashah Ahare Moth, in the Torah section known as After the Death. We're going to 51?
52.
52, okay.
To offer an additional sacrifice on the holiday of Sukkot, of booths, as Numbers 29, verse 13 states, and you shall present an offering as a pleasant fragrance.
All right, and Sukkot is popularly referred to in English as the pilgrimage festival of tabernacles, though huts is probably a better translation. Right? And the final miswah for this week, the final commandments for this week is
2 more.
Oh yes, okay.
Okay.
Then next to final is to offer an additional sacrifice on Shemini Asareth, the 8th day of either assembly or the 8th day, which causes the culmination or the finale of Sukkot, and that's what it's referred to as in the Torah. It's the 8th day after the 7 days of Sukkot, the festival of tabernacles of huts. So to offer an additional sacrifice also on this 8th day of finale, for it is a festival in its own right, as Numbers chapter 29, verse 35 states, and on the 8th day. And the final miswah.
To celebrate on the festivals, as Exodus 23:14 states, and you shall celebrate 3 festivals for me.
All right, and festivals is not the best translation because, as we know, there are more than 3 festivals that God commands in the Torah, but rather this word is more appropriately understood as a pilgrimage festival. It's not just that you're celebrating, like celebrating where you're at, like people typically do on Christmas or Thanksgiving. No, it's lahavdil. It's more like the Hajj in Islam, where if you're able, you're supposed to make a journey to a holy place, a specific destination. In this case, the center of the Jewish people, the people of Israel, and that is the location of the most sacred temple, the national temple of the people of Israel. And then you return after the holiday. And so that's what this is referring to specifically. Yeah. And that
Is the
concludes.
Arabic and the Hebrew related there? Because it
No,
sounds
absolutely.
similar
Not a
to
question.
me. Hajj and
Not a
Hog.
Not a question. There's no question about it. In fact, in the country with the highest number of Arabic speakers, who wants to take a guess which country that is? Which country has the highest number of Arabic speakers?
Saudi Arabia?
Good. I would say that's a pretty good guess. It's probably, I think it's the largest Arab speaking country, but it's Egypt. So in Egypt, the country with the highest number of Arabic speakers, they do not pronounce the standard Arabic letter known as Jim, Gimel in Hebrew. They do not pronounce the Arabic letter Jim as a J. How do you think they pronounce it? As a G. So in Egypt, in the country with the highest number of Arabic speakers, and which is the main producer of Arabic movies, which means it's the most widely understood colloquial form of Arabic, they don't say Hajj. Anybody want to give a guess what they call it?
Hog.
Yeah, Hajj. That's exactly right. Just a little bit of a coincidence, along with everything else. You know, on Sukkot, we go around the altar, which is a massive cube in the holiest place in the Jewish faith. We go around it 7 times. When they make Hag, and of course, the nickname of Sukkot is Hag. Even though we have 3 Hagim, 3 pilgrimage festivals, only one of them is frequently referred to simply with the word Hag. That's Sukkot, the one in which we go around the altar 7 times. So in Islam, during Hag, they make pilgrimage to where? In Islam.
Mecca.
Right? And what do they do when they get there? What is like the main thing that they do?
Walk
They
around that box.
circle
The big square thing. It looks uncannily similar to the big altar in the temple. And how many times do you think they go around it?
7.
Yes, exactly. What came
If
first, the
they
chicken or the egg,
survive, they
or the
make it
snake?
7 times.
Yeah.
If they survive.
All right, let's keep going. Yeah, if you survive, because they're not exactly cautious about human life in that process, unfortunately. Okay. Apologize if there's a bit of lag. Yep, eventually computers need to be replaced. All right. First, let's go through the Hebrew alphabet. I know many of our regulars probably already know the Hebrew alphabet, but no harm in doing a quick review. Let's try to save questions till the middle parts between the major sections of the lesson.
Shouldn't you just say my name when you say that?
No, sir.
Okay.
But between the breaks, like between doing the alphabet and moving on to the next part, maybe we'll give a glance at the chat box to see if anybody wrote any questions. If it's going to load. Holy smokes, it's slow. All right. Heather, would you like to read? I'm sorry, Hodaya, would you like to read?
For at that time I will change the speech of the peoples to a pure language, and that all of them may call upon the name of the Eternal and serve him with one accord.
All right, I'll say the letter and you can say the letter. I'll say the name of the letter and then I will just give an example of its pronunciation. Aleph,
Aleph.
Beth, B,
Beth.
Beth.
B.
B.
Veth, V,
Veth.
Veth. V.
V.
Gimel. G.
Gimel.
Gimel.
G.
G.
Rimel. R.
Rimel.
Gimel. R.
Ra.
Dalef. Da.
Dalef.
Daleth.
Da.
Da.
Zalef. Va.
Dalef.
Daleth.
Da.
Da.
He. Ha.
Hey. Ha.
Wall. Wa.
Wa.
Wow.
Wa.
Wa.
Zayin. Z.
Zain.
Zayin.
Z.
Z.
Heth.
Heth.
All right, we'll do it one more time. Heth. Ha.
Heth. Ha.
Ha.
All right, very good. Make sure not to confuse it with the letter kaf, nor with the letter he. We could work on that in a different occasion. Plus, well,
Teth.
Ha.
Ta.
yud, ya,
Yud.
Yud.
Ya.
Ya.
Yeah.
kaf, ka,
Kaf.
Kaf.
Ka.
Ka.
kaf, ha,
Haf. Ha.
Huff.
lamed, la,
Lam.
Lamed.
La.
La.
mem, ma,
Mem.
Mem.
Mm.
Ma.
Mm.
nun, na,
Nun.
Nun.
N.
Na.
N.
samech, sa,
Samech.
Samech.
Sa.
Sa.
How do you pronounce that K sound
Which-
at the end? At the end of Samek.
So if you see a letter K underlined, it's going to be cha, like in the letter kaf. It's the
Okay.
letter that looks like a backward C with no dot inside.
So it's
That's it.
Samech.
That's right.
Samech.
Samech. That's right. And that's if there's a line under the K. There are
Right.
other ways it's more commonly transliterated, like as a CH. CH is extremely common in the English-speaking Jewish world, but it's not good, because if your goal is to help people who do not have much background in Hebrew, people from an English-speaking background, well, if you're representing cha with a CH, almost certainly the person with little Hebrew background is going to read it as a cha, like in cheese. Like, why do that? You know?
Agreed.
A more and a more common way of transliterating it, other than the CH, I'd probably say next up in line is a KH. And that is better, because it's better to mispronounce cha as just a regular K, like I don't know, K sound like in the word cat or snack. It's better to mispronounce cha as a K than as a CH. However, there's still some issues with it, and that is, well, one, in addition to it requiring two letters, which can make transliterations more bulky and confusing, but also it's not the way it's normally done, does not distinguish between the letter chaf and the letter het. But that's a whole nother thing. So in short, K with a line under it, cha, like the letter chaf, samech,
Okay.
sam. Ayin, ayin.
Eyeing.
And it's almost like you're about to, well, it's essentially the same muscles as your gag reflex. Ayin, like you're about to attempt to throw up. Pardon the explicitness. Ayin. So everybody go ayin. Ah.
I.
Ayin.
Eyeing.
Good. Pe. Pa.
Pe.
Hey.
Pa.
Pa.
Fe. Fa.
Fe.
Hey.
Slawdy. Slaw.
Saudi. Sa.
Wow, I hear somebody doing that really well. I'm not sure who. That's really good. Oof. Oh.
Oof. Oh.
Oh, really good, you guys. Fresh. Ra.
Resh. Ra.
Sheen. Sha.
Sheen.
Sheen. Sha.
I want everyone to notice that when it's a SH sound, like in the word shore, the dot is on the right side. In contrast to when it makes an S sound called the letter seen. So just remember when it's sheen, SH, it's on the right. When it's on the left, it's seen. Seen.
Seen.
Seen. Sa.
Seen. Sa.
Seen. Sa.
Tao. Ta.
Tall.
Tao. Ta.
Thao. Tha.
Tall.
Thao. Tha.
Sa.
All right, now I'm going to go through it, just me. You guys, I want to practice as well, repeating after me, but this time turn off your mics. We're going to go more quickly. So turn off your mics. And on the count of 3, we will begin again. Aleph, Beth, Veth, Gimel, Rimel, Daled, Zaled, He, Wal, Zayin, Heth, Qeth, Yud, Kaf, Chaf, Lamed, Mim, Nun, Samech, Ayin, Pe, Fe, Sadi, Quf, Resh, Shin, Sin, Tal, Tho. The end. And that concludes with our alphabet. You can unmute yourselves. If anybody has any questions, now is the time to ask.
A
Who can
lot
pull it
of
back up?
learning. It's a lot of learning. Yeah.
Well, just that you know, this is the most nuanced of the pronunciations that is used among the Jewish people. It's the most nuanced preserved.
Yeah.
So if you learn from other sources, it's not going to be more complicated. It will be less. However, it
Yeah.
will also be less historically accurate. But this is not a presentation of modern Hebrew pronunciation.
Right.
This was a presentation of classical biblical Hebrew pronunciation.
Very
How
And
many
good.
how many extra sounds are we looking at here versus
almost
others?
half of the Hebrew alphabet is redundant in the normative popular pronunciation.
Whoa.
Almost half the letters are redundant. Can anybody
And
give some examples? That means if we want to create an alphabet and a writing system of Hebrew that is most simple, if we're just going to use the popular pronunciation, roughly half of the Hebrew letters should just be erased and not used. They're unnecessary. So what are some examples of letters that are redundant?
Hey,
the
hey, and
ayin.
het.
He, het, not in popular pronunciation, but in some communities, that's the case. There are communities that pronounce he and het the same. Today, they're not widely known. Most people don't know that happens, but it does. In the Persian community, it's pretty common that they pronounce them the same. And in the Mishnah and the Talmud, in both places, you find references to that mistake. It's called out explicitly in the Mishnah. And it says that a person who does this should not be appointed as the leader of prayers in the community, nor should he read publicly from a Torah scroll, until, of course, he fixes that mistake. So that is a good example, but not one of the common mistakes. They do confuse het with another letter, but not with he usually. So they pronounce
Ayin. I'm sorry, go ahead.
ayin and aleph and the letter he. In popular pronunciation of modern Hebrew, he is usually pronounced the same as ayin and aleph. They're all pronounced just as a no consonant. They're not pronounced as a consonant. They're just used like a placeholder for a vowel. So if you learn from the average Israeli how to say the alphabet, they're not going to say gimel dalet he. They'll say gimel dalet e. So Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, E, dot, 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 Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samech, Ayin. So Aleph, E, Ayin. All the same exact pronunciation. What are some other examples?
The Samek and the Tav.
Yes, with Ashkenazim,
Yeah.
when there's no dot in the Tav, instead of pronouncing it as a Tha, TH, like in the word think, they pronounce it like an S, with no distinction whatsoever between Tav with no dot, Sav, and the letter Samech, and the letter Sin, and then they have another S in there as well. Sadi, which is a
Oh, yeah.
combination of two letters. It's not one consonant, it's two. That is a TS sound. So they actually have four S's. Sadi they have is a T plus an S with no vowel between them. You're literally just doing a T and an S. So Tzadi is a redundance both of Sin and Samech and Sav, and Tzadi is also a redundance of the T in Tav in normative pronunciation and the T in Tet. So Tzadi's a whammy. What's
And
another example?
I was going to ask
I'm sorry, I
quickly
look stuck up here, but my computer's kind of low. Yeah.
a little bit about why it's dangerous, like what words are spoken that are being, because we take out some sounds, we end up saying a different word sometimes.
Mhm.
And
Okay, what is a common reference to God in the Jewish world that we use to avoid unnecessarily saying his name, perhaps saying his name without proper reverence? What's another way we refer to God commonly in the Jewish world?
Hashem?
That's right, Hashem. Notice you made an H sound at the beginning, as we should, right? And why would we do that? Because there's a letter Hey there. Now, considering what I just told you about popularized normative modern Hebrew, how do you think they would pronounce that?
Hashem?
Hashem.
mm,
ChatGPT, what does Hashem mean in Hebrew? Hashem means guilty. So
Uh-oh.
bless a guilty one.
mm.
Baruch Hashem. When you want to say praise God, we say Baruch Hashem, bless the name. But if you don't pronounce the Hey, you're saying praise the guilty one.
Oh,
That
man.
seems to be a nudge off.
It's so bad. It's so
That is
bad.
bad. Yeah. And there's a lot of
And
examples
there's
like
a
that.
lot of examples.
Yeah.
A whole lot of examples. When we say Shema Yisrael, if you don't pronounce the ayin and you're not careful with your accent, which there are plenty of people who do this, instead of saying heed or hear, you're saying perhaps. So instead of take to heart, heed, O Israel, that the eternal is our God, the eternal is one. Instead of saying heed, take to heart, what are you saying? Perhaps, O Israel, God is one. Maybe.
Maybe.
Uh,
Jury's still out.
in the Amidah, which is the daily prayer, which corresponds to God's commandment for daily offerings in the temple. In the mainstream, in the Orthodox Jewish world, in the mainstream wording of the first blessing, I'm trying to remember, it's the first one, of the Amidah prayer. This is proclaimed every day publicly out loud in Jewish synagogues. There is the expression Ba'al Gevurot. Ba'al Gevurot. Who can tell us what Ba'al means? Ba'al. Tell me what it means and how many syllables is that?
2 syllables, and it means like a leader, Lord,
It's like Lord, or
God.
more literally, it's possessor. Not necessarily a god, but just
Okay.
like king, it can refer to God.
Yeah.
But the word doesn't inherently mean God. In fact, this is the normal Hebrew word for husband.
Yeah.
So if a woman refers to her husband, she's going to say Ba'ali, my husband. Literally is possessor. And I know that may sound misogynistic. If so, we can also look at the English term and perhaps we'll stop saying husband, because that meant like the guardian of a garden, like the husbandry of different things. Anyway, so Ba'al means a possessor. So when we say it in this prayer, we're referring to the Creator as the possessor of all strengths. He's the ultimate source of all power. Ba'al gevurot. Gevurot is from the word gever or gevura, which means strength, valor. What happens if we switch the accent from Ba'al to Ba'al, which is common when they at least separate it into two syllables? Many times they don't even separate it into two syllables, and they just say Ba'al, which is a whole other problem. So if we switch the accent from the first to the last syllable, from Ba'al to Ba'al, what does that mean? Bow wow.
I have no idea.
It means he had sex.
Oh,
That's what it means. That's not modern slang. That's in the Bible. That's biblical Hebrew. It means he had intercourse. It's about as clear as it's not like the word to lay with, which also means intercourse, but in a more euphemistic way. Ba'al means had intercourse. So the man quite literally possessed the woman, like he enters the woman. It's about as clear as it could be. And when they're saying that in the prayer publicly, switching the accent, then they follow it with gevurot. And gevurot, if you're not careful to pronounce it, it sounds a lot like geverot. If you're not used to hearing it, you can't even hardly hear the difference. Gevurot is the correct pronunciation. It means strengths or acts of might. Gevurot. And then you have geverot. Geverot. Geverot are women. So you see where we're going. This is every pronunciation is not just you can be nitpicky, but when we are at least supposed to be in a state of mind, in a mind frame where we're standing before the King of all kings, the Lord of all existence, we might want to be at least a little more careful with how we speak, right? Just a little less haphazard than we might normally be. And so that's why in the Mishnah Walk, we're trying to awaken people to the importance of the Hebrew language and the importance of heeding the words of our sages and God's commandment that we heed the ancient sages of Israel, that we not appoint leaders of public prayer who are haphazard and clumsy in their pronunciation of Hebrew. Is a person who isn't able to perfectly pronounce every letter less sincere in their service of God? Not necessarily. A person can be very articulate in any language and be evil. You can have perfect Hebrew and be disgusting. But if we are appointing someone as a prayer leader in our communities, or as the public reader of the Torah scroll in our communities, yes, we want someone, first and foremost, we want someone who's sincere and God-fearing. But if you have three different people who are, for all we know, as it appears to our mortal perception, if we have three people who are relatively equal in reverence for God, but one speaks a degenerated form of Hebrew and the other is very articulate, it's not about race. It's not about who's more sincere. It's about who is going to help the community the most to learn the language of the Bible, to learn Torah more accurately, and who's not, who is, despite all his sincerity and purity of heart, is likely to unintentionally say things that honestly are blasphemous. God will forgive them, of course, especially they don't know any better. But it's a sign on a community level. This is a sign that the leaders of the community are not doing their job on a very basic level. If they don't know Hebrew to the level that they don't know the difference between Ba'al and Ba'al, they should not be leading prayers. And unfortunately, it hurts me to say this, but that is the norm outside of Israel. That is the norm in the Orthodox world. Exceptions exist, absolutely, but that's the norm. So we should always remember that Orthodox does not always mean Orthodox, right? Orthodox is not always living up to its etymology, its literal meaning. Okay, any other questions before we move on to our next segment? No? So were we going to look at some of the Shabbat prayers, and which ones did you have in mind?
Well, I keep being asked to do like, the ones on Friday night, in particular, I think.
Okay.
Kiddush.
And I'm not confident, and so I want to be careful in my pronunciation
Okay.
and making sure I'm doing it right. So
So I don't have
that would be very
slides.
helpful.
I don't have slides yet for it, but we can, God willing, soon we will do
But yeah,
that.
just going into
I should
just doing
prioritize
the
it
Siddur is
because
fine with me.
this is every week, so
Every
I
week.
should prioritize it. And you guys feel free to hit me over the head to get it done. I'll be. It's a worthy cause. Okay, so we'll do that, and then afterwards, if we have some time left, we will do a look over the vocabulary related to Hanukkah afterwards. I'm gonna make this smaller to try to find it more quickly. Here, it should be right up here. It's Newman plus like. Okay, when in doubt, go to the table of contents. All right. Kiddush, page 52. Now this is very, very concise. This is not what most people do. Most people will do what we're going to find here, plus a lot of additional scriptural readings, which is perfectly fine as long as we do not lose sight of the core obligation. And I do have the most universally practiced of the scriptural readings, which is not the core of this commandment, but it is one of the oldest.
Having more than you would probably do risks dropping the ones that are essential. So
Absolutely, and we see that all the time, all the time. So first things first, we learn what's essential, and after we are proficient in that, then we can build upon it and sing extra songs if we want to sing songs. That's great. Yeah. No criticism for that at all. That's a natural thing to do. But yeah, it defeats the purpose when we don't know. I just realized that all that time I wasn't sharing my screen, right?
And I wasn't recording, which I'll have to grab it off of YouTube or something now.
Okay. All right. Mr. Victor, okay. Check it. When you see I'm nearing and I'm treading on dangerous ground, just tell me check it, Yosef, check it. I almost said something, some surprise. So check it is our word for the day. Be quiet, check it. Devorah, would you like to read the instructions?
You're muted.
Who, me? Oh, Devorah.
I was. One sanctifies Shabbat over wine or pure grape juice before partaking of a Sabbath meal. Kiddush should be done at the location of the meal. If one desires bread more than wine, he says Kiddush over the bread instead. Shabbat morning and afternoon, one only recites the blessing for Bore Peri Hagafen. It is a universal custom to precede the Kiddush of Shabbat night with a recitation of Genesis 2, 1 through 3.
All right. So we will practice this, but first we're going to go to the core of it. And the core, Hodaya, which of these two blessings is the core of Kiddush and why? So first we have the blessing over wine or grape juice, and then we have The blessing
Would it be
regarding, go ahead.
Would it be the second one because it's specific to the Shabbat rather than just having wine or grape juice?
That's right. That's right. So, if you don't have wine or bread on hand, does that mean that you cannot do kiddush? In other words, is kiddush dependent upon the presence of bread or wine?
No.
All right, it's not. It's not. We should do it over bread or wine, but that is rabbinic. Whereas kiddush itself, the core of kiddush, which means sanctification, what is its source? Is it a custom? Is it like a post-Talmudic custom? Is it a rabbinic law from the Great Sanhedrin, or is it directly from the mouth of God? Which would you say and why? Anybody can speak up.
Are you speaking of Kiddush as being the Genesis part, or
So the second blessing of these two blessings, Kiddush and the evening, Friday evening, are two blessings: blessing over the wine, and then a blessing regarding the sanctity of Shabbat. You might could say that if you didn't know the words to that blessing, if you said the scriptural part about God sanctifying the Sabbath, which comes from the book of Genesis, that if you have intent that you're applying it now with that intent, it could fulfill the same commandment. But the question is this whole concept of chidush, which means sanctification, distinguishing, is this whole concept of verbally articulating God's act of sanctifying the seventh day and a Friday evening, Friday night, is that a post-biblical Jewish custom? Is it like a post-Talmudic custom? Like not any different, essentially, than singing Hava Nagila? Hava Nagila. Is it like no different than that? It's just that more people do it? Or is it a rabbinic law coming from the Great Sanhedrin? Or is it an explicit divine commandment from the mouth of the Most High himself? Which would you guys say and why? What do you base it on?
It's the last because
What was the last?
we are commanded to sanctify the Shabbat.
That's right. That's right.
From the mouth.
And where?
From the mouth.
And where are we commanded, and how do we know that it's specifically verbally, if you're able to verbalize?
Exodus?
And yeah, it's in the Ten Commandments. It's actually one of the Ten Commandments. So when we do Kiddush, we are literally remaining faithful, we're upholding the covenant on the most basic level of the Ten Commandments. And how do we learn from the Ten Commandments that it should be specifically by articulating it, that we sanctify Shabbat? And it's not to the exclusion of other ways, but we know specifically to sanctify Shabbat verbally. How do we know that? Trick question, but I've mentioned it a few times, so maybe someone will recall.
I remember hearing you say what it was, but I don't remember what it was.
I'm going to write it in the chat box. So the commandment is the imperative form of the word remember, which is zachor. Zachor. Right? So zachor means what? What does zachor mean? Zachor means remember. Okay, so let's write that word down. If you guys have a daf nayar, if you have a paper, if you have a pen or a pencil, let's write down the word zachor. Zachor is the singular masculine imperative form of the word remember. It's like saying remember, right? So that's the word that's in the Ten Commandments. Remember the Sabbath day. Zachor et yom hashabbat. Now this word
So
zachor,
that sounds like mental awareness more than a moving of the mouth so far.
right? So where do we get the idea that it? Of course, it includes the mental awareness, no question. But our sages did not come up with a rabbinic law that you should verbally articulate it. Our sages taught that it is part and parcel with the explicit commandment of God. So how do we get that? So zachor is a homonym. What's a homonym? So from the word homo, which means same, everybody should know that in 2025. Homo means same.
Same
And
meaning
then,
as something else.
yes, well, same, not same meaning, but same name or same word. So in several languages, the word for noun is the same as the word for name. So homonym means the same word, right? Like spelling. So or sound. So zachor is the homonym. It has more than one meaning, but with the same sound of a word. Zachor means remember as a command, but it also means mention as a command, to make mention. So it literally means both remember, and at the same time, it literally means speak, mention it, articulate it verbally.
Which is missed in the translation.
Of course, of course, of course. All right,
Unless
so
we
it's a
translate
Torah
it as
commandment.
mention. Yeah. So the command is deoratha. The what
From the
to
Torah. Deoraita means
say,
from the Torah. That's right.
what to bless, or the words to use would be from the sages.
Right. The exact way that we articulate it, that is a rabbinic framework that they gave us to fulfill the Torah commandment. But in lieu of that, if you don't have a prayer book on hand, you don't have it memorized, in lieu of that, it's of course better to say it in your own words, in whichever way you can, to proclaim the distinction, and you still fulfill the Torah commandment.
Quick question. I
Yes,
use
ma'am.
English still. I still
Okay.
use the English. I don't want to learn the Hebrew of it until I remember the actual English words
That's great.
by
That's great.
heart.
That's great. And see, one advantage to knowing the difference between the core duty, the core commandments, and later customs, however beautiful they may be, is that when you know the core commandments, it becomes much more manageable to learn. You'll be much less overwhelmed. And what that provides you is the ability that if you have the time or the strength of mind, because I know it's Friday night, people are often tired after a full week of work. But what that means is because you have less burden on your shoulders, because you learned, you educated yourself, that means that now you can prioritize the English as you should to know what you're actually saying. And that frees up more time to then practice the Hebrew. If you're not starving or whatever, then you can practice the Hebrew. Because now you know, oh, I don't have to do this long list, 5 pages of other things before I do Kiddush. I can just focus on the core obligation. I can do it in English, and if I have strength, I can now practice it in Hebrew, knowing what I'm saying and doing. And then
So I can,
after,
so I can actually practice the Hebrew later on the next day,
of course, it's
just for
never,
practice.
it is never a violation to not take God's name in vain if you are mentioning God's name or reading scripture and you're doing it with the intent to learn God's word. When you are reading the Bible or teaching and you have intent to be learning or teaching, there is no need. In fact, it's kind of a sign of lack of education or what's the word? Neurosis. I think more on a cultural level to feel like we have to distort God's name in order to not be taking it in vain in the context of teaching and learning Torah. So you don't have to worry about saying God's name in vain. How is it in vain if we're mentioning God's name as part of learning His word? That's not in vain. It's a mitzvah. It's a commandment. We're fulfilling His will. So feel free to read the blessing as it's actually written to practice. And you can do that whenever. I mean, of course, if you're in in an appropriate setting, you don't want to do it with, in the farm, pig pen with feces and everything, because you're selling the pigs to your non-Jewish neighbor, of course, right? That's right.
Don't practice in the bathroom.
Pig pen. Yeah, don't practice when you're in the restroom.
Yeah. What would you say if someone is just learning kind of like a parrot to know how to do the Hebrew, but really don't know what they're saying, and they just stay there.
It's-
In other words,
it's-
they're fluent and they don't really know what they're saying.
It's not a mentioning of God's name in vain if they have intent to be doing the commandment, right? If they have in their mind that they are in the presence of God and they have the reverence, do that. But it's not it's not proper Torah learning if you just stick at that point and you're not trying to learn more. There's no, in the words of our sages in Pirkei Avot, there is no sin in never mastering everything. We're not required to master everything. That's not one of the commandments, to know everything and master everything. But, and I'm paraphrasing what it says in Pirkei Avot, but we are not free from the duty to pursue it, to pursue the knowledge, to pursue knowing, not just intellectually, but in action. So
not having to reach it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be working toward it.
Right. So it's not incumbent upon us to complete the task, but we are not excused from it. Right. And that's doable. It's not too hard. You just do what you can. And most people know when they're pushing themselves too hard. We should be aware of that. It is possible to drive yourself crazy. You don't want to do that. So don't be hard on yourself if you feel like, oh, I need to go take a walk, or I need to play with my pets now. No, you know what your limit is. And we should just try to be honest with ourselves when we also realize that we're spending too much time playing with our pets, or I don't know, watching YouTube videos or whatever else. I'm guilty on this on so many fronts. Gardening. And you can't even be doing something good and doing too much. But anyway, so that's that. It's wonderful to learn these things in English, and I would definitely recommend first learning it in English and then in Hebrew. But learning it in English, becoming familiar with something in English, doesn't require years and years. And it's also not a black and white thing. You can do a few weeks only in English, and then after you've done it for a few weeks and you're pretty familiar with it, then instead of jumping all the way to only Hebrew, you can approach it. You can approach it by reading the first line in English and then repeating that line in Hebrew and just doing it with the first line. First line in English, then repeat it in Hebrew, the first line, and then everything else do in English. And then after you've done that for a few months, you read the first line in Hebrew, the second line in English, and then repeat the second line in Hebrew. And slowly over time, you're building, you're adding. You could do the first line this way, and then after a few months, do the first and the last line that way in Hebrew and English, and everything in the middle, all English. You don't need to just jump all into it all at once. If you want to, you can. But I think for most people, that's overwhelming. But it's possible to do these things, step by step. That's usually more manageable. So let's jump into Qidush. Shalom Aleichem Immanuel. Immanuel. Immanuel, what am I saying?
Right.
I'm not trying to be silly. What am I saying?
No, it's okay. It's funny. I tell people to call me that sometimes to make it short.
Imanu, but what does Imanu mean?
I don't know.
Imanu means with us. With us.
See, I was right. Imanu, with us.
Yeah. So if I say Immanuel, what am I saying?
God with us, because El is God.
That's right. But if I'm using Immanuel as a name and I say Immanuel, Imanu, what am I saying?
God with us. God with us.
So
with us.
if I use Immanuel as a name, like it's the name of a person, then I'm saying Emmanuel's with us. Emmanuel, Emmanuel's with us.
Oh, I see.
I could say Victor Imanu, or Imanu Hodaya, Imanu Deborah, right? Righty, Nathil Hodaya. Maybe we'll give you a later one. Mr. Victor, let's do the first phrase. This is the core of Kiddush, the sanctification and fulfillment of the Ten Commandments.
Baruch atah Adonai.
All right, that's good for now. Dvora,
Yes.
would you mind spelling for us the letters of this first word? Of course, we're going from right to left, and I'm speaking for everybody here. I know you know it's from right to left. Would you mind spelling it for us? I'll highlight and you tell me the name of the letter and the sound that it makes.
Bet, ba,
Okay,
resh, ra,
okay,
vav.
okay. Now
That's a
when good,
oo sound.
that's right. So when we have the letter wall or vav,
Wow.
if there's a dot in it, as you correctly said, it's an oo. So normally it will be a V sound in modern Hebrew, and it will be a W sound in biblical Hebrew normally. But if you see it with a dot in it, it's going to be oo. All right, and then this beautiful sucker right here.
That is I think it's a kaf.
Yes, ma'am. And what kind of kaf is it? There's two types.
Um, those two dots, I think they're just like an accent of some sort.
All right, so
And it's an ending letter, so it's changed its shape.
yes, that's right.
It
So
makes a
this is the
k
letter.
sound. Baruch.
All right, all right. So
I'm not sure about that.
yeah, but you're close enough that it would be understood. So when the letter kaf, which normally looks more like this, with or without the dot in the middle, it's like a backwards C. When kaf is at the end of a word, it looks like this. When it's not at the end of the word, it looks like this, as you said. When kaf is at the end of a word, 9 times out of 10, it's going to make the sound 9 times out of 10. So I want you guys to write that down. You can remember it even when you're reading Hebrew with no vowels or trying to read Hebrew. This is one of the ways you can know how to read Hebrew without vowels, by learning these general rules, these general principles. So the general rule is 9 times out of 10. If this letter is at the end of a word, you're going to pronounce it as if there's no dot inside of it. It's a sound. So bet, b, resh, ra, wall, oo. And here it's oo because this kind of wall is called a shuruk. It makes an oo sound. Shuruk. Shuruk, oo. Chaf, sofit, final chaf. Let's put it all together.
Baruch.
Beautiful. So if we have anybody just joining us for the first time and they're just learning Hebrew, this is one of the first words you want to learn. Baruch. Heather, tell us everything you know about Baruch. You guys take
It's
notes because this is a common word. It's a significant word. Give us everything you got.
you usually translate it something like "most worthy are you."
That's
It's
right. There's a reason.
It's related to the word ni.
Yes, that's right. Berech is ni, and
So
this
like
is Baruch.
so like when we're praying the Amidah, it's often on Baruch that we literally bend our knees.
That's right. That's why. It's not random. That's the
Mhm.
reason. And that is the core of the word. That's how it gives the connotation of attributing value or worth.
Mhm.
Right? So yes, you can translate it as praise. It is a sort of praise, but it's specifically an attributing of worth. And in Jewish legal texts, this is actually even a legal term. The same root becomes a legal term for like to evaluate the value of something, to appraise something. And we hear the word praise even in the English word, to give an appraisal. It's an estimation of value or an ascribing of value. So that answers the question, how can we bless God when God doesn't need anything? So when we bless God, which is how Baruch, this word, is usually translated, when we bless God, we're not giving God something he doesn't already have. What we're doing is simply making a conscious recognition of the value that is inherent to who he is. Whereas in contrast, when God blesses us, he is increasing value in our lives. Okay. Anybody want to add anything else about the word Baruch?
I was thinking Baruch means to honor, not necessarily the literal meaning of our word honor, but when I say Baruch, I know I can't bless God, so I'm thinking I'm acknowledging him.
That's exactly what I was trying to say before. This is the same idea.
Mhm.
Same idea. And the highest physical way you can express recognition of value is by kneeling and bowing. And that's why in the Amidah, the daily Jewish prayer, we bow, as Hodaya mentioned, we kneel and bow at the word Baruch.
Every time, though.
So our sages only required that we do this 5 times in the Amidah. The beginning and end of the first blessing, at the beginning and end of the final blessing, and at the, I got that wrong, at the beginning and end of the first blessing, at the beginning and end of the next to last blessing.
Is that the one on goodness?
Modim, we are grateful before you, or we give thanks. Right? We say, Modim anachnu lach. We are grateful before you, O Lord our God. So let's say it together. I say it and you repeat. At the beginning and end of the first blessing.
Beginning and end of the first blessing.
At the beginning and end of the next to last blessing.
And the beginning and end of the next to
last blessing.
Next to last blessing.
And then a 5th time at the very end. Okay, that's the 5th and final kneeling. So that is all that the sages of Israel required that we do. And that requirement is only on able-bodied people. If you're not able, of course, you can just nod or you can do whatever you're able to do. If you're paralyzed, obviously, God is not waving us, like a bat over us, just looking for an opportunity to bash us, heaven forbid. So it's all according to your ability. But for the average person in the Middle East, in the conditions that they had at that time, the sages of Israel only required those 5 places in the Amidah. However, as the son of Maimonides explicitly expounds upon in his famous book, The Guide of the Servants of God, he explicitly writes that the sages did not institute these 5 places to say you can't bow to God in any other context. No, this was simply the basic framework for community worship and the basic duty for Jews, whether they're praying in a community or alone. But if you're doing personal prayer and you want to bow to God 100 times, you can do that. Hopefully only if you have intent, right? Not just mechanically and mindlessly. But if you are moved to serve God or you do so to awaken humility before him, you can do it in more than these 5 places. It's not forbidden. It's only forbidden to add to it if you are a prayer leader in the community, right? Or, if you're praying with a community and bowing it more than those places will interfere with other people. But in personal prayer, you're not limited to the 5. It's just the 5 are the bare minimum.
Could you repeat when you bend again?
Let's say it together again. We kneel when we say Baruch at the beginning and end of the first blessing. So at the beginning and end of the first blessing. Everybody say it.
Beginning and end of the first blessing.
That's right. And we're talking about the Amidah, also known as the Shemona Esrei, the core daily prayer of the Jewish people. Then we kneel, we bow to God at the beginning and end of the next to last blessing.
Beginning and end of the next to last blessing.
Right. So that's 4. And where is the 5th?
Very end.
That's right, at the very end. So there are 5.
I want to ask a quick question for the sake of any newcomers to the prayers.
That's excellent.
Because I am relatively new. And one of the things that I learned somewhere along the way that I should only bow a certain way at these certain places. And I had been unknowingly bowing every time, just my head, every time I said Baruch.
A lot of people do that. And I think that's wonderful. You know why?
So I still, to this day, I'll still do the proper bowing for those 5 locations. But every time I say Baruch, I find myself bowing my head again.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But it's not just a habit. It's I feel like I need to,
All right. Well, if God placed that on your heart, as long as you're not saying that this is a law,
No.
You know, as long as you're not saying this is part of the covenant. No, this is part of your personal devotion to God.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine. I'm not saying it's fine according to all opinions. I am saying it's fine according to some of the greatest leaders of the Jewish people, greatest scholars since the Talmud. It's perfectly fine and it's praiseworthy. And that is also an ancient practice of the Jewish people. You're not just doing it by mistake, even though maybe it's an outgrowth of not knowing any better, but it is actually one of the ancient practices, possibly the older of the practice of bowing in the Amidah. And it's preserved in the Talmud as the duty of the high priest. When a high priest of Israel is praying the Amidah, he is to kneel at every mention of Baruch in the Amidah. And we know, I mean, you can of course take it too far, but the high priest of Israel is supposed to serve as an example for the entire people of Israel. He's supposed to be a representative and an example for us. And then the king of Israel, he kneels and bows at the first mention of Baruch, and he's supposed to remain kneeled and bowed over for the entire Amidah. So even in the source text, we see that there's more than one way of doing it. We also have an explicit mention in the Talmud that people would see Rabbi Akiva, one of the probably the best known of the Talmudic characters after Judah the prince. And it's explicitly mentioned in the Talmud that people would see him beginning the prayer, and in the Talmudic literature and Mishnaic literature, the Amidah prayer, what everybody calls the Amidah, is not called the Amidah prayer there. It's usually just referred to as HaTefillah, the prayer. So it says in the Talmud that people would see Rabbi Akiva beginning the prayer at one end of the room. They would leave and they'd come back and they'd find him at the complete other end of the room. And it says explicitly in the Talmud, because of his many prostrations. And the implication, it's a nearly explicit implication, is that he was prostrating more than other people do. And this is part of the basis for the son of Maimonides explaining that there's no prohibition to pray, to prostrate more than the requirement. That requirement wasn't intended as a limit. It was intended as a baseline, kind of like the laws of Noah. The laws of Noah are not intended as a limit. They're just intended as a bare minimum standard. And you need to have a standard somewhere to start from.
So you're mentioning kneeling or bowing, but we also can see that this is a full prostration. Would have been the norm, some time back. That's changed to the norm now is more of a knee bend and a bow. So there would be 5 prostrations generally, at least in the Talmudic literature, other than
It's not stated that you have to prostrate in the Amidah. It doesn't, inside the Amidah, you don't have to prostrate. But it does say that Rabbi Akiva was doing this. So it's certainly not forbidden. And I completely agree
even
with
5 times, even 5 times.
Even 100 times, if that's, I can't
Well, I
get
mean,
over
you don't
the
have to
double.
do, I mean, I was under the impression that historically it was a prostration, not a knee bend.
If you have a source for that, please let me know. I don't know.
No, I don't. But I was under that impression.
So I am saying that it's clear from the Talmud that you are able to prostrate in those places, a full prostration. To be clear, by full prostration, we are not talking about, well, I want you to define, what do you mean by full prostration?
Well, like you see today up on the Temple Mount, they're laying belly to the ground. Then you also have the Islamic type of prostration, which is
that's called qida.
the forehead to the ground.
Yes. Yes.
Knees and forehead all the way down.
So it's good that you bring this up, because I think a lot of people in the context of Jewish law, and I'm talking about even people who grew up in religious Jewish communities, they hardly ever talk about this topic. So even people who grew up in yeshivot, in Jewish religious schools, usually don't know these distinctions. So it's important that we know in the context of classical Jewish literature, typically the term hishta hawaya, usually translated as prostration, this term is reserved specifically for being spread eagle flat on the ground, right? As opposed to some other terms, which are different forms of bowing. So there's different types of bowing, but when we say prostration in context of classical Judaism, it's usually understood as a complete, full, flat bow on the ground.
I wonder if maybe somebody has an illustration of this somewhere.
I've seen it.
Well, it happens to be. You're so funny. What a wonderful idea. That could be so useful for us to see. Let's see. Okay. We can find it here. There we go. Okay. So the most strict, I could say, that our sages actually required, at least as we have the Talmud today, I have no reason to think it was tampered with in those places, but there are plenty of cases where the Talmudic text has some textual variances. That's why I said that. But I don't know any reason to think this is such a case of mistake. But the strictest way you could understand it, basically, for the 5 places that we bow is something along the lines of this. That you're on your knees and you bend over, because it says you should bend over to what extent? Till the spurs of the backbone protrude out of the back. You may not even have to bend over this far in order to fulfill that requirement. That's the extent of it. Again, they're not saying that this is all you can do. They're saying that's the bare minimum for someone who is able. And I'm strongly convinced, for various reasons, but for the sake of brevity, I'll just say it. I'm strongly convinced that the main reason they said this, that they had such a minimal requirement, I think it's minimal, other people would argue otherwise, is due to realities on the ground, not because they held that this was really ideal for someone who's able to do more, but rather due to the reality on the ground. That reality being circumstances of extreme poverty, circumstances of persecution, where you often had an oversized community in an undersized building. You didn't have too much room in public prayer. So this was the minimum to be able to kneel before God and bow without everybody bumping into each other and distracting each other. I think that makes sense. I would love to hear other opinions if people have other opinions that are like rational, not about like, well, you have to be on the 5th level of Olama Atzilut in order to put your forehead on the ground, and then sparks are going to fly out if you're not at the appropriate level, and the fires of hell will consume you from within. No, no. If you have a rational explanation, other explanations for why this might be, I'd love to hear it. But this is one of the only ways that I see why they would have done that. I think also, water was relatively scarce in the Middle East. And unlike Muslims, who were theocratic and still are, well outside the location of their origin, and one of the privileges of being part of a theocratic religion that controls vast occupied lands that they unjustly conquered, is that the religion and the government are the same. And when the religion and the government are the same, the government can oversee massive projects to enable a more easy implementing of the religious laws. Muslims had that advantage that Jews did not have. So Muslims can be, and often are, if you discuss with them these things, they'll be like, oh, Jews are so lazy, Jews this, Jews that. They love to crap on Jews. and pontificate to Jews and portray themselves as holier than thou all the time. And these are some of the most common ways they do it, by talking about how wonderful they are and how they pray, and Jews are basically just scum. But they ignore the fact that the ease of their implementing the prayers, which are very, very much copied, like down to details copied from Jews. They overlook, downplay, or are completely oblivious to their privilege, the privilege of their Islamic supremacist imperialism, that at nearly every mosque in their occupied lands, their oppressive governments, on the backs of regular folk, oftentimes non-Muslims, would build large pools where people could wash their hands, wash their feet. These are privileges that Jews did not have. There are places where Yemen, for example, I know this firsthand from Jews who grew up there. Yemen, for example, the synagogue was not allowed to be taller than the houses of the Muslims around them. So synagogues would also need to be a little bit underground just so that they could stand up. Yes. And like the possibility of having a pool of water where you could rinse and everything simply was not even in their frame of in the realm of possibility. Like they were just happy to have a place that they could pray in any circumstance. In Yemen, actually, although the sages required a pouring of water before prayer over your hands, in Yemen, they didn't even do that. Not because they didn't want to, but their resources were so limited that they just simply submersed their hands in a little pot of water. That's what they did. Well, meanwhile, Muslims have these large pools and they're like mocking Jews. Yes, religion of peace and of compassion. My donkey. They are the donkey. So how is that related to what we're talking about? Well, synagogues would also, depending on the climate and the proximity to bodies of water, synagogues are also more likely to have dirt on the floor than privileged mosques of Islamic fascists. So I think this was also likely a compassion by our sages that they not require us to put our face to dirty floors.
The tefillin on the forehead probably should never touch the ground anyway. Is that a thing?
There's nothing wrong with tefillin touching the ground if it's done in a respectful way and it's not dirty. It's not done in a irresponsible way, like you're just bashing it onto the ground. The high priest of Israel, we know, would do full prostration in the temple wearing tefillin. It's not an issue. Not an issue. But it's also more feasible to do it without it becoming an issue when your tefillin are not 4 inches by 4 inches. You know, tefillin used to be much smaller than they popularly are now due to heredization. You know, the spreading of irrational Judaism has made the irrational distortion of Judaism has made people obsessed with what's the word? Not I don't want to say trivial, but things that should be less priority. People become obsessed with those things and less concerned with things that should be priorities, and it's led to all sorts of absurdities. But yeah, there's no problem with your tefillin touching the ground any more than there's a problem with your tefillin going into a bag. It's a question of,
well, like a Torah scroll, you would never want to touch the ground. You know, it should not touch the ground.
Ideally, no, but the Torah scroll is not attached to your forehead. Like
no, I was just thinking there might have been a correlation.
But tefillin is an instrument of worship that's attached to you, and we're supposed to prostrate. It's even a commandment in the Torah during Bikurim, the bringing of first fruit offerings, that you prostrate. And the words of the Torah are supposed to make us prostrate, both literally and figuratively. So it's not an issue. But what I am saying about the size of tefillin is that it doesn't even have to touch the floor if it's not massive as it has so often become now. It's so easy to commit anachronism, to sort of rewrite history, and then we rewrite problems into history because we're starting from a point of reference of today after the fact of all sorts of changes that have occurred. You know, like the massive tefillin. It wasn't even a question back in the day, but they did have other issues that today we don't even think about. You know, like sanitation and the privilege or lack thereof of washing hands. So would our sages say that you don't have to touch your face to the floor during those 5 bows in the Amidah if they had known a reality, which is now completely the reality of fresh running water in every home? It's hard for me to believe. I don't have authority to now come up with some new obligation on all Jews, but it's hard for me to believe that they would not have required us to put our faces to the ground in those 5 places if they had known a reality where basically all Jews, even in third world countries, have running water nearby. They talk about in the Talmud about the requirement to walk kilometers to access running water or pure water to wash your hands. And if it's beyond a certain amount of distance, you're not required. It was nowhere in their in their conscience, completely beyond their scope of possibility that people could have running water in their houses, like 10 feet from their beds, wherever they are sleeping. Even if they go visit a random friend, there's running. They had no concept of such a thing.
And hot water too.
Yes, and hot water. Yeah, yeah, and various options for what kind of faucet you will use, and the strength of the force of the water coming out. We are living, the norm in the Western world is beyond the privilege of kings in Talmudic times. So if you approach Torah in a rational way, I think a lot of these things make so much more sense. It's just not often done. One of my most famous rabbis, not famous, one of my most favorite rabbis, alive still. So I'm not going to mention his name at the moment because I think it's not one of his high points. He has some videos on the internet about basically saying there's no obligation to prostrate in the Amidah. And some of this, I think, is actually in reaction to me. I've met him a few times, and I know he knows of me. And I know I talk more about this than most people do. So I suspect that his videos might be in response to me. Maybe. Maybe not. But in his videos where he makes a point to say there's no obligation to prostrate in the Amidah prayer. Just to be clear, as I already have said, I don't say there's a technical obligation to prostrate in the Amidah prayer. But in his, he also, it's important to note, he also very clearly states again and again that there's no prohibition. But he tries to balance it by saying, but it's not reasonable to do it because most people can't do this. And it's just not feasible for most people. Most people can't hardly get out of the ground. And he's speaking as someone who's obese. I'm not trying to insult him, but most people around the world are not obese. In parts of the Western world, most people are obese. But are we supposed to change the norm of halakha for people who are sick? And I'm sorry, but if you are obese, that is a type of sickness. Sickness doesn't mean moral failure. You can be a saint and be sick, but that's a sickness. We do not create a standard based on sickness. We create a standard based on normal, feasible health for the average person. So maybe what he's saying should be the halakha, but he just needs to clarify for people who are obese or for people who have joint problems. That's fine. I mean, I've had joint problems. I'm getting a little bit obese. It happens. But we don't rewrite history or change the standard because of our own limitations. I don't know if everybody knows this, but I'm not attracted to women. I do not change the halakha and say that you don't need to get married, that the commandment to get married to the opposite sex is no longer a mitzvah. It's no longer a commandment because of my limitations. This is not the proper approach of Torah. And you have this perversion of Torah on both in liberal Judaism and leftist leaning Judaism, and you have perversions of Torah in the same regard, but just applied in different ways on the more conservative or right leaning. It's a universal problem that we have to keep our eyes out for. You can't kneel down. That's too hard. So our sages couldn't have meant that that's what we're really supposed to do because most people can't kneel down. What? If you can't kneel down, you have a problem. You have a problem. And not kneeling down just a few times a day is not going to make that problem any better. If anything, kneeling down and 5 times in the Amidah, a few times a day, is going to improve your health if you're able to do it, at all. If you really can't, of course, don't just go trying to kneel down 5. You don't start any new path by running your head into the wall full force. You do little by little. But kneeling in the Amidah is something that would help also maintain a baseline level of physical fitness. Who is less likely to fall in old age and fracture their hip because they didn't have good development of their hip muscles, of their leg muscles? Somebody who's been kneeling every day most of their life, or somebody who never does? It's not a question. And also, like, are we blind? 2 billion Muslims kneel and prostrate every single day, 5 times a day, but we can't? What? It's a joke. I love this rabbi who said this. That's just, nobody's perfect. So I can still love this rabbi and highly respect him while calling out that, and I think it's embarrassing. I would, if he sees this, hopefully I've spoken a little common sense that I don't know how he could not understand it for what it is, and he will remove that video or perhaps upload a video correcting himself. And I would, and other people too, would increase in their respect for him if he would do that. We can all make mistakes. That was embarrassing. All right, let's keep going. I'm sorry. Let's get into the baracha. So that's baruch, to ascribe value, often translated as blessed, but that is really not doing justice to the word. My favorite translation is most worthy of praise and source of all blessing when we say baruch in reference to God.
Page 52, I believe.
All right. So we learned that there are 2 blessings that constitute Kiddush, the sanctification, which we do on Friday evenings or Friday night. Only the second one is the core duty, and that is the core of Kiddush. Only that, not all the songs that are traditionally said, not even the blessing over wine. But our sages rabbinically instituted that we say it over wine or over bread if you prefer bread or don't have access to wine. But let's begin here. Hodaya, would you like to read?
Baruch atah Adonai.
All right, let's translate it.
Most worthy are you, O Eternal.
All right. Emmanuel, would you like to say the next little section? Just the highlighted portion.
Eloheinu melech haolam.
All right. And melech, accent on the first syllable.
Oh,
Melech haolam.
Melech haolam.
All right. Yeah, if you could speak a little bit louder too, and go ahead and translate it for us.
Elohim. King is a king of the universe. Elohim. I know what the phrase means, is king of the universe, but I don't know what Eloheinu.
All right, so king of the universe is just these 2 words, and
Yeah.
this is before that. Anybody want to give it a shot?
Our God.
And our God.
All right.
There you go. Our God.
Yes,
I forgot.
Eloheinu, our God. How do you know it says
Yeah.
our and not just God? How do you know it's our God?
Some part of the Henu. I don't know the grammar yet.
No problem. So you can write this down. The nu suffix, when you have a nu at the end of a word, it always means either us or our. I know of a tiny, tiny handful of exceptions to that. We will disregard those exceptions. I'm only acknowledging it so people will not be like, oh, you don't know this one exception, right? But 99 times out of 100, nu at the end of a word always means us or our. Okay? If nu is added at the end of a noun, it means our. So our, whatever noun, whatever person, place, or thing is added to, it would be our. So if yad, Y-A-D, yad means hand. If I say yadenu, that means our hands. If I say roshenu, that means our rosh. Rosh is head, roshenu. So enu, the consonants are just the nun and the vav. Excuse me. That means our when it's added at the end of a noun. If it's added at the end of a verb, it means us. So it goes from being a possessive pronoun to being a plural, first person plural direct object, us. So nu is us when added to a verb at the end of a verb, and nu is our when added at the end of a noun. Make sure you guys write that down because it's very common. And then the Elohe is just the word Elohim with the mem dropping because you drop the mem, plural ending im. You drop the letter mem when it's a plural of something. And Elohim, for our theological jihadis, or for our theological crusaders, Elohim is always plural, even when it's used in reference to singular persons. And it's one of many words in Hebrew that operate that way. People who try to create a theological argument based on it simply, unfortunately, are not familiar enough with Hebrew, because with the same thinking, you could also try to create a quote unquote proof of not just a trinity, but of a ninity, even 9, because some of the places where people believe there's hints of a trinity, you have 3 references of Elohim, 3 usages of Elohim. If each one means 3, then you get 9. So it's just, all it means is the source of all powers when we refer to God. And there are many other nouns, as we mentioned, that are always plural as well. There is no singular form of this word that has the same meaning. If you make Elohim singular, it actually becomes a different word. It's not the singular form of Elohim, it becomes a different word. Who can tell me what the singular form of Elohim is?
Eloah.
That's right, Eloah. Very good. Why not El? A lot of people say Elohim's the plural of El. It's not. It's not. The plural of El is not Elohim. The plural of El is Elim.
Mm-hmm.
There are nuances here that completely get lost in translation. All right, so what's the difference between Elohim and Eloah? If Eloah is the singular, Elohim is the plural, but they're literally different words. And there are instances of this in other languages as well.
Is it the implication that it's an authority over us, over
That's
something?
with the plural, not over us, but just in general.
Right, right.
Elohim, the connotation is a powerful authority. That's the connotation. When you make it singular, it's not, the difference is not just that it's singular, it actually it changes in the usage of the word. When you make it singular, it no longer connotes a powerful authority, it connotes something that is an object of worship. Whereas Elohim, although technically in the development of the word is just a plural of Eloah, but Elohim does not inherently connote that it's an object of worship. When God said to Moses, I will make you Elohim to Pharaoh, he was not saying that Pharaoh is supposed to now worship you or that he will worship you. We also refer to the Great Sanhedrin, the Supreme Court of Israel, of biblical Israel. It's also called Elohim. That doesn't mean we're supposed to worship it. Heaven forbid. That's not the connotation of the word. Yes, sir. I can't hear you. You're on mute.
I believe I gave a thumbs up by accident, actually.
Yeah, and it was a thumbs up. I thought you meant raised hand.
And yep.
So you want to take that thumbs up away? You're saying
Is it still
disapproval?
up?
No, disapproval. I meant disapproval. You didn't mean it, huh?
Yeah, I meant a thumbs down. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, so Elohim is plural and Elim is plural. What's the difference between Elohim and Elim? All of these are from the same root word. We're just pointing out how things get lost in translation. And a lot of people who know a little bit of Hebrew but have not exposed themselves to enough Hebrew literature, actually immerse themselves in the literature, they are able to present themselves as if they know some things, and they may know some things. But because they've never really been engrossed in the literature, they don't know these nuances. So Elohim is not the plural of El, it's the plural of Eloah. We learned that. And the plural of El is not Elohim, it's Elim. So what is the difference between Elohim and Elim?
Well, in that concept, then one is God, the other one, I'm not sure.
So none of these inherently mean God, the way we understand it in English. None of these, and the fundamental meaning of these words, none of them mean on a fundamental level the uncreated one. It's like the word king or kind. God is kind, yes, but the word kind does not inherently mean God. God is king, yes, but the word king does not mean God. If I call someone king, it doesn't mean I'm calling them God. So king and God are not equal. Same thing with these words. Elohim does often refer to God, but the word Elohim does not mean God the way we understand it in
Doesn't
English.
it? I thought in the Tanakh is referred to the judges as Elohim as well.
It does. That's what I'm saying. And if Elohim inherently means God, capital G, then what? We're saying these human judges are the creator of the universe? Of course not. So Elohim does not mean God. It's often translated that way, but we have to understand that translations simply are not perfect. They are not perfect. They cannot translate all nuances. If Elohim literally meant God, then God is polytheistic, heaven forbid.
Yeah.
And there are cults that jump on this, recognize that potential implication, if that were true, and actually become polytheistic. Mormons are polytheistic.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna
this
say
is
that.
part of the basis of it because of ignorance of Hebrew.
Yeah.
So, yes, judges are called Elohim, and they ain't God.
Yeah.
They are powerful authorities. They are authorities imbued with power. My aunt is so beautiful. She's gonna start. It's gonna get old, but she's so beautiful. You have a blessed day, Amigo. Okay, okay. All right. So Elim, the connotation of Elim is simply mighty ones. Okay. There's even more than that, depending on the context, but most of the time the connotation is mighty ones of renown, mighty ones of legend, or mighty ones of lore. And sometimes, and this is also true with the word El, both the singular and the plural form. It's the same connotation.
Was David's men referred to as Els?
I don't know.
Mighty men? No.
I don't know. I don't remember. I do know that there are places.
Giborim, I believe.
Go ahead. You said Giburim.
I believe it was Giborim.
That sounds more likely,
I think
but
that's what his
I
men
can't
were
speak
referred to as.
about it because I'm not. I don't have the entire Hebrew Bible memorized. I don't have the entire Torah memorized, but I'm much closer to having memorized the Torah than I am to having memorized the entire Hebrew Bible. That doesn't mean I'm not familiar, but familiarity and actually having memorized is not the same thing. I don't have it memorized, but in Ezekiel we see um, mighty men of war referred to as Elim, and it's consistently understood, even in Christian translations, as mighty men or mighty warriors. They don't translate it as God, but then magically in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, they translate it as God, capital G. It's the same word. If it means God, capital G, then the prophet Ezekiel was a polytheist. It's people, we have to become consistent. Anyhow, so the way I recommend you understand the term Eloheinu, which is very common in our Jewish blessings, is powerful authority over us. It does not mean inherent divinity. It does not mean absolute God. It certainly often refers to God, but that's not the inherent meaning of the word. If it just means God, then when we say Adonai with the four-letter name, that refers absolutely to the creator, the uncreated one. But if this means God, and then Eloheinu means God, and when there's no difference between them, then it's redundant. But it's not redundant. There's nuances here that people just simply, they're not taught. So we're saying that we recognize you, O eternal one, the true and absolute divinity. We recognize that you are the source of all blessing and most worthy of praise. And when we say Eloheinu, we're acknowledging that we acknowledge and accept that this one, the eternal, the God of all existence, we accept and recognize that he is the only legitimate, powerful authority over us. When you say Eloheinu, this constitutes already in the reciting the Shema, for example, and every time you say a Jewish blessing, it constitutes a renewal of the acceptance of the kingdom of God upon yourself. It's a constant renewal, 100 times a day. That's not that isn't hyperbole. 100 times a day, traditionally, Jews renew their acceptance of the kingdom of heaven in their hearts and in their lives and in the Jewish community. And every time you say Eloheinu, that's what you're doing. When we say Baruch Atah Adonai, we're acknowledging a fact. Okay? It's a fact. It's not bad that we're acknowledging it. It's necessary. We're acknowledging the fact that God is the source of all blessing. That doesn't mean that we've accepted his rulership over us. We're acknowledging it. Okay? When we say Eloheinu, now we've moved beyond acknowledging the fact that is true regardless of our acknowledgement. And now we've moved into the acceptance, the crowning him as the authority over us, the voluntary acceptance. And then when we say Malech ha'olam, we're saying not only do we accept you as our ultimate authority over us, but when we say Malech ha'olam, king of all existence, now we're saying, and you are the only legitimate ruler of all existence, not just us, but of all existence. Now, this should make it that when you say these blessings, it has much more impact than just saying, "Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe." And they're nice words, but they really don't have the full impact. So we have the acknowledgement of reality, Baruch Atah Adonai, and we have the acceptance, the voluntary surrender to his authority in our lives and our communities by saying Eloheinu. And then Malech ha'olam, we are returning the crown, so to speak, to the only legitimate ruler of all existence, to the eternal. When we say Malech ha'olam, king of all existence, king of the universe, and multiverses, if you believe in that. Yes, sir.
So the Eloheinu is the more vital part of the Shema versus the Echad.
Yes. Well, those are equally important, and it's kind of redundant, but for emphasis and clarification. Eloheinu is saying that you, and that beautiful question, makes me happy to hear it. So the Shema has two parts, which often gets overlooked. You have the acceptance. When we say Eloheinu, this is our acceptance of his lordship over us. When we say Adonai Ahad, we're saying to the exclusion of all others. This is already true when you say Eloheinu.
Okay.
But lest someone say Elohim is plural, or maybe Elohim only in this land, but not in other lands, or some other nonsense. When we say Adonai Ahad, it comes to add emphasis and clarity. to the exclusion of all others, without plurality of authorities. The one and only authority.
Not a number one with a number two standing nearby.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's not a council.
Mm.
It's not a council of judges. It's just God. Because Elohim can refer to a council. That's true. Not with God. Not with the true King of Kings. It's to the exclusion of all others. Yes, God sometimes speaks as if a head of a council. That doesn't mean that he depends on that council. It doesn't mean that he needs their approval. You know, it's like a king. Well, it's really not comparable even to a human king, but in some ways, you know, like a real old time sort of king, where he had what do you call it? When he had councilmen, advisors, even if he took their advice, he really didn't need their authority. He just took their advice. The difference is that a human king would actually need advice if he's wise. Even if he doesn't need their authority, he needs their advice. Whereas with God, he doesn't need our advice. So why is there counsel? Is to show his benevolence and his kindness, and to show, for lack of a better word, the intellectual honesty on his part, the transparency on his part, not because he needs advice as if there's some wisdom lacking on God's part that he needs a council of angels or a Messiah to give him advice. Heaven forbid. That's not real monotheism. That's not real authentic, crowning of God as the perfect in and of himself. No, that's a failure. And God will have mercy on people who, because of our own intellectual shortcomings, don't recognize that. But that's a failure. There is not some divine council where God needs to hear the counsel of lower entities. No. This council, number one, it doesn't even actually exist, literally. This is all figurative. And there's some truth, elements of truth in metaphors. I'm not saying it's not true. Something can be true and metaphorical. The prodigal son story in the Gospels is true, whether or not it ever happened, is to drive home a point, to teach a lesson. The divine council doesn't exist in heaven or on earth or anywhere where God has like a big white throne and he's sitting there. Heaven forbid. God needs a chair and a throne to sit. Did he get tired? Heaven forbid. This is like, that is a level of worship of God that is baby. God will have mercy on these people if they're sincere, and I believe most of them are. But that is like having mercy on a little baby. He calls us to grow up. He gave us a brain to develop. Behold, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Does he need a chair to sit on? Does he have an inferior ego that he needs a big throne to make himself feel good?
How can he sit in the throne if he doesn't have a body?
Does he need a body? Is he not capable without arms and legs? You know, this is ridiculous. I thought he's all-knowing. Does he need legs to go and check out what's going on? No, he's all-knowing. These are contradictions that people just never thought about. God doesn't need legs to go and walk and look because he doesn't already know. Oh my goodness. I know you guys already know this, but like people just don't think it through. God speaks in the language of men for us because the Torah wasn't made for people at one level. The Torah was given as a mercy to all mankind, and most of humanity has been at a pretty low level. So God works with us the same way in math. When you start trying to teach math to kids, you give silly little examples of how to apply 2 plus 2. You give silly little stories to children because that's what they can relate to. But the Torah is the magnum opus of school books because it is layered so that even people at the lowest level can get something out of it and work their way up to a higher level. But even when you have developed beyond, it's still crammed, packed with meaning and virtue and insight. So why is there a counsel of God? Even if we say figuratively, there's a counsel of God. Why? Transparency, to show the transparency. God is not afraid to have his plans challenged, like with Abraham. God already
Mhm.
knew how many righteous people were or were not in Sodom and Gomorrah. He didn't need Abraham to make him think of these things. God already knew where Adam and Eve were when he said, "Where are you?" If we think he actually like was asking these questions because of a lack of knowledge, oh my goodness. You might have some feel good hand raising praise and worship services, but you don't really know God. Maybe you know him, but you know him at the most elementary point of just being beyond a dog knowing that something gives it food in the morning. Like that's not very, I'm not trying to talk down to people. I'm trying to help people wake up. Like knowing that someone gave you food and made you is good. I'm not saying that's bad, but that is very elementary. Most dogs know that they have a mother. Most dogs know that they have a master. God wants us to go a little bit higher in our walk beyond being dogs, but even the dogs, what? Even the dogs are grateful for the crumb, right? I'm not speaking down to the dogs, but don't be a dog. You don't have to be a dog. You can move up.
Hmm.
So transparency, it's a glorification of God's dignity. It's also, and again, we're talking about the council, the divine council, which people love to talk about, especially academics, to try to bring down the uh, the renown of the God of Israel as if it's just some other pagan entity. If we were to speak of, if we were to try to convey God it's the highest way possible, it would be none of this. It would be absolute silence because no word can capture his greatness. The moment you utter one word, we've already, so to speak, dethroned God. Any word we say about him, praising him, is a dethroning of God, who is neither male nor female. It doesn't have genitalia. Even if he would reproduce, literally make another equal entity, heaven forbid, it's a contradiction in terms. But even if he would, he doesn't need genitalia to do that. God is not male or female. Anything we say about God is a insult to the greatness of the reality of his being. Anything. It is a mercy to God that we can say anything about him. Anything we say demands his mercy and compassion. He permits us because we're finite. He permits us to within the limits of what he's permitted in the Torah. But this is on the condition that we would have knowledge of the fact that these things that we say are not the reality as it truly is, but rather these are permissions so that we will not behave as if God doesn't exist. But really, the best thing we could say, not in practice, but in theory, the highest praise would be silence. And there's a verse like this. I forget the exact wording, but in the book of Psalms, there's a verse like this where God is made great in silence. Because, if we can never comprehend the greatness of God, but if we comprehend God to the greatest extent of our limited perception, we would be speechless. We'd be speechless, dumbfounded. That's the highest praise. But because of the reality of lowly humanity, if we never said anything, then ignorance would spread. So we have to speak. We have to praise with words,
We have
knowing, and this
to
is,
we
go
have to
ahead.
speak with a mentality that of how small what we're saying,
With
as big as we can
awareness.
make it, how nothing it really is.
That's why Kaddish, related to Kiddush that we're looking at, which means the sanctification, it doesn't mean saying that God is sinless. We know he's sinless. Sanctification isn't referring to that. I know in Christianity, to be sanctified often is understood in the sense of to be sinless. For us, it's related to, distancing ourselves from perversion and error. But in reference to God, that's not what it is. When we sanctify God, we're declaring his distinction, his set apartness, not from sin, although that's a given, but from all other things, not just from sin. To declare God's holiness, his sanctity, his kedusha, is to distinguish him from everything, even the most lofty of concepts. He is beyond all. That's why we say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. He is beyond everything on the earth. He is beyond everything in the heavens. He is beyond of all beyonds. And yet he is so great, he's not too good for himself, so to speak, but yet he shows mercy and is near to those who call upon him. That's why we say Kadosh 3 times. And 3 is used as like a high, the most heightened of all amplifications, like Melech Malchei Malachim. You have 3. Melech Malchei Malachim. The king of all kings. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. The holy of the most holy. It's beyond holy.
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure if it's related, but it came to my mind while you were talking, and that is when I used to travel a lot, and I was in Hawaii on the beach, and I knew the Pacific Ocean surrounded the island, and I was so overwhelmed by the how much water there was. I'm afraid of water. So
Oh no.
I'm sitting there on the beach just staring at this water, and I'm overwhelmed by how much there is, how big, how
And how
easy it would.
minuscule.
Oh, yeah, the tiny, tiny, all of us, we're so tiny. And when you look up at the sky, at the stars at the Grand Canyon, it's just those moments make me feel very tiny. And that's those are just overwhelming moments. I do remember those moments sometimes when I think of God because he is so great. And I'm just wondering, is that what you're talking about in moving higher, acknowledging to the best we're so
Or limitations, yeah.
helpless. We're so
To the best of
helpless.
our limitations. Well, one
That's,
thing that's
yeah,
very
that's
important,
just the highest I can get that I know
right?
of.
As long as we know, and this is what the Torah calls us to
Mhm.
know that even whatever we've grasped, that God
Yeah.
is greater.
Yeah.
God is, even what we know, he has mercy on us that even our highest intellect
Mhm.
fails. But
It does.
he made us this way. This is not really a failure.
Right.
It fails to grasp him, but it must. That's not a sin. It's not a sin. As long as we know that he's greater. We don't have to know how or what. It's impossible to know, but just know he's greater. The moment that we don't, then we become uh, culpable
Then
for the sin of making him less.
I look down at this little tiny granules of sand and how much bigger I am than them. It's
Yeah.
like, that's crazy. This is too
We
much to
should also,
comprehend.
it's also very important to know that when we say God is greater, we don't mean quantitatively greater. We don't mean like he's greater than all things in the sense that there's a puddle in my
Mhm.
backyard of water, and then there's a pond that's greater, and then there's an ocean that's really greater, but God is even greater. That's if we understand that literally, like God is greater just in volume. That's not what we mean,
Right.
right? Because that's a greater of quantity.
Mhm.
It still has a limit, and it's also limited to a certain substance. But when we say God is greater, we don't mean like this angel is big, but God is even bigger, like
Mhm.
like with a size. There is no size. There
I
is no
know.
size. It's not that he's so big we can't comprehend. It ain't there. He's so great that there's nothing that can convey it.
Yeah.
So he is not quantitatively greater. He's not greater in quantity. The greaterness, the difference in greatness is qualitatively different. It's of a fundamentally, inherently, utterly different reality, utterly different. And we don't say this to say that God is unrelatable. Of course, he's relatable, but the means by which we relate to him is a it's a concession on God's part, a concession of his honor, because we can never, you know, we can't grasp even a fragment of the reality of his being to
Mhm.
truly grasp it. Because even a fragment, if that were even possible to break him into parts, heaven forbid, even a fragment of infinity is infinity. You can't. You know?
I know.
You can't. What we can know is that he is greater on a fundamental level beyond anything we can ever comprehend. But we know he communicates with us like heaven forbid, because any analogy falls short. Like a person blowing over the surface of an aquarium and the fish seeing the ripples from below. We see the ripples and we can say that's God, knowing that the ripples are not God, but the ripples are God in the sense that I know that the image of you and the voice of you on my screen right now, or my image and my voice right now, you know that's not me. It's not literally me, but it is an agent of mine. And so you know I exist even if you don't literally see me, but you know I exist because this image, which is not truly me, right? That hand, it's not really my hand. You open it up, there's nothing in there, right? That's not me. This is how it is with God and us. So we know he exists by his activity and by the exclusion of all other things, like the ripples of the water on the surface of an aquarium when we're looking up. Hopefully better than the fish, we know that the one causing the ripples is not the ripples, right? And maybe a voice comes through those ripples. So we know that we can know him, but that knowing isn't know him in the reality as he truly is. And that's all. I was going to say earlier about the Kaddish, if you guys are familiar with Kaddish. Kaddish. Kaddish is the sanctification. This is why after every major section of Jewish prayer, we say Kaddish, because after saying all these praise and descriptions of God, we need to be reminded Amen. Beyond all blessing, shiratha, song, tushbahatha, and praise, beyond it all. So don't think, you just said the Amidah, don't think that you have captured the greatness of God. Don't think you have expressed the fullness of God's greatness. Nope, nope. And we say this after each and every section of Jewish prayer, major section of Jewish prayer. We declare that. It's
I think
very
that's
beautiful.
why Rambam says we should focus on explaining what God is not versus what we
Absolutely.
think he is.
We can't.
Right.
We in practice we speak about God as if you know we can ascribe things positively to his essence, but we do that knowing that we can't and knowing that that's not what we're doing. That's the way we're supposed to be. We say he because if we don't say he, then it's as if he doesn't exist. You could say it, but now you make him impersonal, but he is personal, right? We don't say all these things glorifying his incomprehensible greatness in order to say that God can't interact with humans. Of course he does, but in some way that's incomprehensible to us. So it is a failure, and he is a failure, and she is a failure. They're all failures. None of them are true. And so God is merciful because it's all his forgiveness. He's forgiving toward us because of our limitations. And nothing wrong with that. That's the way it's supposed to be. So let's continue. It's really it's exciting when you recognize it. You know, it's amazing. The universe will never be dull or boring. If you're ever bored, think of the greatness of God. All right, Baruch atah Adonai, source of all blessing and most worthy of praise, are you, O eternal, absolute existence, source of all existence. Eloheinu, the powerful authority over us, who we accept as our Lord over us. Melech, King, ha'olam, of all existence. Hodaya, would you like next word?
Bore,
Creator, the of is inferred.
Peri,
Fruit of,
Hagafen.
the vine, specifically grapevine. So creator of the fruit of the grapevine. And that's what we say while holding up the cup, lifting up the cup, holding roughly half a cup of wine or grape juice. Right? And it needs to be lifted up at least a handbreadth from the ground. That's the wording in the source text because they historically sat on the ground. I'm not saying you have to sit on the ground.
So if we're sitting at a table, should we hold it at least a hand's breadth above
That's
the
it.
table?
Yeah, you don't have to lift it super high up, although a lot of people do it. I do it because I think it's pretty. But yeah, it doesn't have to be super lifted up, just a hand's breadth. And maybe not even, yeah, they didn't talk about it, tables because they didn't have the tables. Let's keep going. All right, I know I get on tangents. Barakah haba'ah. Now we're going to the next barakah, the next blessing, coronation of God's. That's why I don't do it often, but I would like to refer to the blessings as coronations, because each blessing is a renewal of our acknowledgement and acceptance of God as the source of all blessing and the greatest worth in our life, and the acceptance of his lordship over us. That's quite literally the definition of these blessings, barachot. That's why I would like to call them coronations, because it's as if we're coronating him as king again and again in our lives. Not that he isn't already, but we're, so to speak, picking up the crown of his kingship that we let slip from our hearts, so to speak. All right, Deborah, would you like to read?
Sure. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
Beautiful. And would you like to translate?
I say, blessed are you, Lord
That's
our
fine.
God, King of the universe.
All right, you got it.
I think that's, yeah.
We'll keep on.
Asher kidishanu veratza vanu.
Good, very good, and also wonderful accenting. You said rasa, and that's what it should be. If you said rasa, it means she ran. So another example of how accent is important. Ratsavanu, it could be translated as she ran into us or she ran at us. But rasavanu means he desired us. All right.
Cool.
Emmanuel, would you like to translate?
I don't know that I can. I share. I'm not. I think it's not really a word. It's a name, but it's like
It's
a
a pronoun.
place.
It's one of the
Pronoun, yeah.
only gender neutral pronouns in Hebrew. I think I can only recall two.
So I will say most
Gender
the
neutral
most holy.
words. Go ahead.
Yeah. Krishna,
So let's write it
most
down.
holy one.
Let's write it down. We're just focused on Asher at the moment. Aleph
Okay.
Shin Resh. I want everybody to write it down. Aleph Shin Resh. It's extremely common.
Yeah.
It's different from almost all other words in Hebrew because it is of all nouns, pronouns, verbs, everything is male or female. There's no blurring, right? There's no neutral even. There's no neuter, what they say in linguistics. All is male or female. But there are two words, I can't think of another, there might be, which act as pronouns, which are neutral. They're gender neutral. And also, well, this is the only one that is both gender neutral and also number neutral. So it is neither plural or singular. It looks singular, but you can use it with plurals. And it's neither male or female. Asher. And it serves as a connector between phrases. So it can be used like the word that, in the sense that she said that she's coming home. I amara she I ozeret habayta. She said that she's coming home. So here is acting like a conjunction to join two phrases.
Mhm.
If anybody knows Spanish, it functions very much like the word que in Spanish, other than for what, other than as a question, what in Spanish. And so that's one of the ways it's very, very frequently used as a conjunction, a connector of phrases, she. Asher. Asher is the full form of the prefix she. So she is a very, very common abbreviated form of asher. Asher is the full word all by itself. And she is a one-letter prefix attached to the beginning of words, she. These are the
So
same word.
So in this
Asher
case
and She.
is
Say what?
referring to, in this case is referring to who? Like
Yes.
the who?
So when She is not simply a conjunction and it's acting as a pronoun, that means it's referring to a person, place, or a thing without referring to it by name. That's a pronoun. So when Asher is not functioning as a connector between major phrases in a sentence, it's acting as a pronoun, that, which, or who. So the word that is one word, but that can be used in more than one way in English. And the word asher is the same in Hebrew. You have that as a conjunction, like she said that she's coming home. Here, she said that she's coming home. It's connecting two main parts of the word. She said is the one major part of the word, and that she's coming home, the that is connecting the part that describes what she said. That's one way of using the word that in English. That can also be used as a pronoun in English in the sense of I want that. I want that. So that here is acting as a noun of sorts, a pronoun. It's an unspecified noun. That. I want that. Or let's see. That's the man that I helped. That's the man that I helped. Okay? So that I helped, that in the phrase that I helped refers back to the man. Right? It's a pronoun. Just like he. So asher is like this. It can be, I'm going to write it here. You guys can write this down. Asher. Most often, or most simply, can be translated either as that, which, or who in non-question usages of these as pronouns or conjunctions. You need to clarify that it's the non-question usage of these words because which and who can be used as questions. So which one, and that's the man which helped me, or that's the book which I lost. It's the same word, but it gets used in different ways. So this word asher is not used in both of those ways. It's only used in the identifier sense of which, not in the question sense. Everybody follow? Same thing with who can be used as a question, or that's the man who I spoke to yesterday. So that's two different usages, two distinct usages of the word who. The word asher cannot work for both of those usages. It only works for the identifier, not for the question. So asher is non-question, which or who, or that. Very, very useful. Put it on your fridge. Super, super common. So, blessed are you, O eternal, the powerful authority over us, King of all existence, who
Sanctify us.
Yes, who sanctified us. We know it's us because the nu at the end of the verb.
Veratza.
And desired, and desired or favored, vanu, in us, literally in us.
Mm.
Mr. Victor, tor shalcha. You may be on mute.
Got it.
All right, tor shalcha, your turn.
Shabbat. Kedshu. Kedesh. Kadashu.
Like, oh my goodness. Oh, Kadasho.
Kadsho.
Yes. If the
Two
dot
syllables.
is
Over
in the
there,
middle,
yeah.
on the left-hand side in the middle of the vav, of the wall, then it's an oo. But if it's on the top, it's an o. Oo, o. So if it's in the middle, it's oo. If it's on top, it's o. Well,
Kadshu.
not oo, o. O,
Sorry.
like O-H.
Kadsho.
That's it. That's it. Shabbat, Quadasho, Sabbath,
Uh,
holy. So Sabbath, holy is how you say holy Sabbath. Everything's backwards. His holy Sabbath. So the syntax, the order of the words is very different from English here. In Hebrew, you're saying Sabbath, holy, his. The O makes it his. In English, you would do it completely the opposite. His holy Sabbath. And that's why Hebrew is so hard, because everything is just completely backwards from English.
yeah. And in English, I got a whole lot of more words to throw in there first. And in love and favor gave us this holy Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Emmanuel, b'chavod. B'chavod means with honor. Go ahead. B'chavod.
Okay. והאחווה היא
Hin
היא
hilanu. Hin hilanu.
הנחילן.
Right?
הנחילנו. הנחילנו, yeah.
Hava. This syllable should be shorter than the surrounding ones because it has a shawat, which means shorten the syllable. So hava, not ba'a.
Wow.
Some people would say ba'ahava or ba'ahava. It must be shorter. Ba'ahava, very short. Not aha, but aha. Ahava. Ba'ahava inhilanu.
הנחילנו.
All right, Bonatar again. Let's translate.
Ooh, I don't
Be.
know.
Very common prefix. Be, super common prefix. It's a preposition. It means in, at, with, by, through, super flexible. So if one translation doesn't make a lot of sense with adding this bet at the beginning of a word, feel free to play around with it till one makes more sense in English. It cannot mean infinite things, but it can mean many different prepositions. Prepositions are usually short words in English that give perspective or show how one thing is relative to another. So in, at, with, by, through, at, those are prepositions. Odaya, would you like to give it a hit? Give it a shot?
Is it with love?
That's it. With love. Hinhilan. Identify prefixes and suffixes, which will help you isolate the basic three-letter roots. Inhilan.
The news, the suffix.
Mm-hmm.
The hey is a prefix too, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Go ahead and try to explain what these mean. What is the nu?
New is us or our, right?
Okay, and how would you know which one? How do you know if it's us or if it's our?
I don't remember.
Okay, so if it's at the end of a verb, it would be us.
Right.
If it's at the end of a noun, it would be our. But we may not know yet if this word is a noun or a verb. So we'll set that to the side. But once we know, then we'll know if this should be us or our. Okay, let's go to the prefix. Hey, just that everyone knows, when you see the letter hey at the beginning of a word, almost always that's a prefix. It's almost never the core part of the word. It's appendaged onto the word, a prefix. So what does this prefix mean? Anybody want to give it a shot? It's almost a trick question.
Does it change based off of what the vowel is, or is it the same?
I don't know. Let's
Is it
say it,
the,
Mr.
is it,
Victor.
It looked like he.
Baruch Hashem. What does Baruch Hashem mean?
most worthy is the name?
Beautiful. Okay, how did you know that?
Oh, Shem.
Because
Ha. Yeah.
Hashem is the name.
Which
So is he,
part is name and which part is the?
Ha is the, and Shem is name.
Okay, what
So
do we have
he
here?
is the.
Oh, so he never means the. If it were a ha, it would be the.
Okay.
If you see that the hey at the beginning of a word does not have a ha, sometimes it will have a kamatz, which is usually also pronounced ha in modern Hebrew. If you don't see that it's a ha at the beginning, you can be pretty darn sure that it doesn't mean the. So that means there's another type of hey prefix, so to speak. This is really part of a construct. What's called a paradigm vowel pattern paradigm. They call them binyanim. It's like a template. That's what I wanted to say. This is part of a specific one of the 7 main templates of Hebrew verbs, but that's way too advanced. I'm just telling you that it's part of that. It's related to that, but for our intents and purposes, we'll look at it like a prefix because it is, in fact, not part of the base word. It's not a fundamental part of the word. It's something appendaged onto it. Appendaged onto
And
it, whether as a pronoun or whether as something related to conjugation. In this case, it is related to conjugation, but it's
and
let me
it's
just. It doesn't mean the is what I want you guys to know. If you see the letter hey at the beginning of a word, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be the. But if it's not a ah sound, then it doesn't mean the. You see it's an e sound, you can be sure it doesn't mean the. What it is almost always is causative. It indicates the causative construct of a verb.
Or
That gives it away that it's a verb. If you see a hey at the beginning of a word and it has a dot under it, you can know that that's a verb, no question.
Wow. This is
Question.
Even if we don't know what the base word means, even if you don't know what this literally means, simply from this you can know for sure that it's a verb. Whatever it is, it's a verb. And that it's a domino effect. That tells you that you know what this is, that it means us instead of our. So somebody caused us to something. Somebody asked a question.
I was asking if the noon was part of the prefix, but it
So the nu, if it's at the end of a word, we call that a suffix.
I think she's
If-
talking about the noon
the
after the
second
hey.
one after the hey.
Okay, beautiful,
Is
beautiful.
that part of the prefix?
So if nun is a prefix, it will always be the very first letter.
Okay.
If it's not the very first letter, it's not. Well, I hate having the exception. I have the exceptions in my head, but for our intents and purposes, 9 times out of 10, it's in no way a prefix unless it's the very first letter.
I'm trying to figure
Sometimes
out how to pronounce it because it has no vowel.
right. It does have a vowel, but the vowel comes before it. It's part of the
Oh.
same syllable as the hey.
That's what
Hin.
I was thinking. It had to be part of the
Hin.
same syllable.
That's right. Hin. So they are not grammatically the same, these two, but they are in the same syllable.
Okay.
Hin. When in doubt regarding a shwa, shwa is what we call these 2 little dots. Shwa can be either sounded, meaning it represents a short sound, in which case this would be like ne, or shwa is silent, in which case it means that the letter it's under is the last letter of a 2 consonant syllable. When in doubt, what should you assume? Should you assume that the shwa is sounded as a short or that it's silent, meaning it's just indicating the end of a 2 consonant syllable? Which one should you assume?
In doubt, you would assume silent.
That's right. Which would mean that the letter above it is the second of a two consonant constructed syllable. With no vowel under it. That's what we should always assume when in doubt. Okay, so nun is not a prefix. We can always assume that as well if the nun is not the very first letter. And what would that mean, Hodaya? How many letters are most Hebrew roots? Pretty much all of them, possibly all of them. So that would mean almost certainly, and I'm just going to tell you, yes, this nun is part of the root. We need three. Het is always part of a root, always. Het is never a prefix or suffix. If you see het, you're seeing part of the root, 100% of the time. Lamed can be a prefix. It's never a suffix. So if the lamed is not at the very beginning of the word, you know it's part of the root.
There's sometimes that a yud is added though, isn't there?
What do you mean? Here in the middle? Yeah, yud is all because yud, there are two ways of spelling words in Hebrew. There's the full way and the shorter way. The shorter way is actually the older way. But the full way started using the letter yud and the letter vav as semi-vowels to indicate or hint the presence of a vowel under the previous letter. And that's what the yud is doing here. So it's not fundamental to the word.
Right. So it's not part of the root.
It's not part of the root, right?
And that's how
So
you
the
get.
root is. Go ahead.
That's how come it looks like there's 4 letters in the root.
Because it's simply acting as a semi-vowel to fill in the gap where a vowel is. Because Hebrew doesn't actually, historically, it doesn't write vowels. So yud is sort of filling in that gap to let you know there's an E sounding type vowel here. All right, so the root nun het lamed, that root has to do with inheritance. So we learned that the he prefix with the E under it means cause. So cause, we know this is a verb because this only comes before verbs. So caused us
to inherit.
To inherit. The two you just have to fill in. It's not needed here in the Hebrew, but in English you have to add it. So he caused us to inherit. I'm going to give you in the chat box a few words from this root.
Heritage, would that be
Allah is an inheritance. Right? That's a noun. You have in heel, caused to inherit. And for modern geopolitics, meet na halim. Meet na halim. Those who inherit. Inheritors. Standard modern Hebrew term referring to Jews who live in Judea, Samaria, or anywhere in biblical or anywhere in the promised land where secular Israeli governance has not yet been officially applied. I shouldn't say governance, I should say sovereignty. There's a difference. So, i.e., it doesn't really mean settlers, but people often translate it as settlers. Settlers has negative connotation. Mitna halim in Hebrew actually has a positive connotation. And by saying it, we admit that you're not just settlers, you're inheritors. The word inherently means that this is your land already. You're inheriting it. Halim. I don't know if you guys saw what I sent in the chat, so I recommend looking at it. So these are some words from this root. Okay.
So to put the sentence
Huh?
together.
What?
So it's with love, he caused us to inherit his holy Shabbat.
That's right, exactly.
Okay.
Mr. Victor, Tur Shulchan. We're really breaking it down. So this is kind of nitty-gritty, heavy stuff. You're getting the literal word order, which does not always match natural English word order of sentences.
Zikron,
Say it again, please, slowly.
Zikron,
All right, let's read it slowly, syllable by syllable.
Z, Gar, Zikaron,
All right, so how many syllables are there?
3,
That's right. We should have 3 syllables.
Zikaron,
There you go, zikaron. Zikaron is commemoration or memorial. Zikaron is a commemoration or a memorial.
a remembrance.
Yes, a remembrance or a memorial or a commemoration.
Le ma, le masa, le,
Le, ma,
le
ah,
ma,
le, ma,
ah,
ah, and make sure not to conflate these 2 syllables. If they have separate vowels, then they are separate syllables. So le, ma, ah, you need to have a break. Ma, ah, and not ma. Not la ma se, but la ma a se. La ma a se.
le ma, assez.
That's it. Or
Z,
as they say in American Yeshivish, Lamaisa. Lamaisa, right?
they might do that.
They might do that.
They might do
But
that.
if you're reading Hebrew, you will not know where they're getting that from.
Ah,
Lamaisa.
mm,
All right.
yeah.
Zikaron lama'ase. Memorial or a commemoration. Le, to or for. Ma'ase, the act or the action. Ma'ase means an act or an action. Milah haba'a.
Okay. Ver, ver, vere, veresh, vereshit.
That's right. Vereshith. Vereshith. So Vereshith means in the beginning. So the act of in the beginning. It's a reference to the act of creation. So it's a
Creation.
commemoration of the act of creation. Le literally means 2 or 4. So it's a commemoration for the act of creation. God's act of creation. All right. Devora, Tur Shalach, your turn.
Not sure what vowel was there. It looks
Okay,
like
so
a,
it's this is called a shwa,
so
the
it's a
two little
te.
dots.
It's like
Yes,
te.
that's right. And shwa, if we're unsure, we should always make it silent. However, it's impossible to do that when it's under the first letter of the word. And therefore, and this is the rule, if a shwa is under the first letter of the word, it's always sounded. Te, te. It's a short vowel, a short syllable. Te. So not te, but te.
Te.
It should not be the
Tehila.
accented syllable.
Tehila.
Beautiful. Tehillah, tehillah.
Tehila. That's a he sound, the second letter.
That het.
Het.
In normative pronunciation, het. That's a mispronunciation, but that's popular. Tehillah,
Tehila.
tehillah.
Tehila. Does that have to do with prayer?
It does sound kind of similar. That would be tefillah. It's the
Okay.
same. That's the same form of the word, but
Okay.
not the same meaning. This is tehillah. It means the beginning of something. Tehillah, the beginning or the first.
Tehila. Leme. Lemi.
Good.
Ka.
Silent shwa. So lamit.
Lamikra. No.
Yes,
Lamikra.
lamikra.
A.
That's it. Lamikra. Let's say it
Lamikra
again
e.
2 times.
Lamikra e. Lamikra e.
And that is a perfect pronunciation of aleph you're doing there. It's called a glottal stop. Lamikra. So not lamikra, not lamikra, not ra, but ra. We should hear the lamikra.
Lamikra e.
Perfect.
Okay.
So tahillah lamikra qadash. Qadash.
Is it Kodesh? I'm simplifying for
Sure. It's
Kodesh.
Kodesh. The
Kodesh.
accent's on the first syllable. Kodesh.
Kodesh.
That's right.
Okay. Tehillah.
What did we say tahillah means?
I forgot.
It's okay. Anybody want to give it a shot?
The beginning.
Oh yeah.
That's right. That's right. Right. And what does la pronoun mean? I'm sorry, not pronoun. La preposition mean? It's a common preposition. Lamed at the beginning of words is often the preposition, more times than not. So you can certainly add that to your notes.
I've forgotten that one too.
Yeah, definitely write it down. Very common. Like l'chaim,
Yeah. Two.
right?
It means two.
That's right. 2 or 4. It can also mean 4.
2 or 4.
Sometimes it means other things, but don't worry about those. Most commonly, 2 or 4.
Mikra e.
So let's just look at this. The part is a sort of suffix. Mikra. Mikra. This is actually, drum roll. This is actually the source of the word church, at least in the way that it gets used in English.
So it's like a gathering or
It's a convocation
convocation.
from the Latin word to call out. And church does not literally mean that, but church is a translation of the Greek ekklesia, which means the same thing. Called out, an assembly of people who are summoned. So it's a summoning or a convocation. So when people talk about the mystery of the church, so-called, it was a mystery now revealed. Nonsense. The exact same word that they translate as church, when this word appears in the Hebrew Bible, the ancient pre-Christian Septuagint translates it with the word ecclesia, the same exact word that they translate as church to English.
Any ideas of words you could translate this to that a 5-year-old would understand?
Yeah.
Because
Gathering,
convocation
group.
Okay.
Group.
Because convocation is
I know.
A little
Or
above.
summoning. Yeah, and summoning
Yeah.
also, but group, special group.
Okay.
Peoples.
No, that's too broad. It's really meeting, not just group even. It's a meeting, but I think meeting is too advanced for a little kid also. Sometimes you have to sacrifice accuracy for understanding something, at least something, right? Rather than nothing.
Mhm.
Mhm.
All right, so let me this is plural. So the beginning of the, and this is the case where la would better be translated as of, but I don't want you to write that down because more times than not, it doesn't translate well as of. Here, that's the best translation. So the beginning or the first, referring to Shabbat, the first of the summonings or the convocations, sacred gatherings, sacred meetings, Qadash, sacred. So it's the first of the holy convocations.
Assembly was the word I was thinking of earlier.
Yeah. I like the word convocation because it preserves the literal meaning of the word, which is to call out. And kind of like you see, again, drum roll, Allah, right? Calling out because they would literally summon from towers or high places the gathering. They would literally do this. Again, this is an example of Islam inheriting Jewish practice, and then Jews, because we were not because we wanted to abandon it, but Jews were not permitted to do these things. And then Muslims took over, and now, oh, we do it, but the Jews don't. Yeah, because you used to murder Jews if we would.
There's that.
Kind of a little detail that gets glossed over. And now in Israel, poor Israel, like tolerating and allowing them to do this in Israel. But if we would do that in a Muslim country, off with our heads.
Mhm.
We're too nice, way too nice. So Miqra'e Kodesh, literally the summoning of gatherings, the summoned gathering, the sacred summoned gathering. Zecher. And this is, if you haven't noticed, it's the same as the word mikra, which is a Hebrew word for scripture, what is recited, what is called out. Qara. To qore means to call out. Min mani qore. From the depths I call out. Qore. Same word. Qara'im, Karaites, those that recite the scripture or claim that they uniquely go by the recited scripture. Not exactly accurate. Next word. Mihaba. Who's next? Mihaba. Emmanuel, איפה
Secher.
אתה?
Secher.
Zecher. Zecher.
Secher.
Right, accent on the first syllable. Zecher.
Litzi. Litziat.
Is it litziyat or litzliat? Is it yat?
Litzi.
Is it yat or at?
It's, I will say at
It
because
is
the
at.
yod.
It should not be yat. If it's yat, you need a vowel under the yud, and there is none.
Yeah.
So there are none. Is none. Yeah. So not litziyat, but litzliat. Litzliat. It's an aleph.
Litziat.
Glottal stop.
Yeah.
Right. So zecher litzliat.
Mitzrayim.
Accent on the ra.
Mitzrayim.
Misrayim.
Mitzrayim.
That's right. Make sure we pronounce the yud as a y. So not Mitzrayim, but Misrayim. It's a
Yim.
consonant.
Yim.
Yim.
Okay.
Li'si'ath Misrayim.
Mitzrayim.
That's it. And you can put a little accent symbol over your R when you transliterate it to let you know which syllable to accent.
Okay.
Li'si'ath Misrayim. Bוא נתרגם. Let's translate. Zecher. What did we say about zecher earlier? We had a very, very closely related word in this same blessing right here. Zikaron. Zikar. Zecher.
Something about remembering.
That's right. So remembrance, zecher, a mentioning, a commemorating. Lisi'ath Misrayim. I'd write down this word also. You don't have to put the lam. You would shift this vowel to underneath the yud. It would be a shawab. Yesi'ath Misrayim. Yesi'ath Misrayim. Who can tell me what is Yesi'ath Misrayim?
Be the Exodus.
That's right. Literally, the going out of, the exodus of. Misrayim is Egypt.
Egypt.
You'll notice it's a double plural ending. There are two types of plural endings in Hebrew. You have double plurals, which are ayim, and then you have more than two. So 3 or more is im. But if it's ayim, it's 2. So what is this Misrayim? It's because Egypt is historically two Egypts. You had Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, and they were literally two different kingdoms at different times. So Misrayim referred to the whole shebang, right? And this gets lost in Arabic. It's an example where Hebrew preserved nuance that Arabic lost. And in many cases, Arabic has little nuances that probably Hebrew, to be frank, lost from older Hebrew. Because originally Arabic and Hebrew were the same language. It's not that the chicken came before the egg and who's the chicken, who's the egg. But just like Spanish and Italian, which came first, Spanish didn't come from Italian. Spanish and Italian both came from Latin, the same original language. And it wasn't like one day one was born, but rather they were basically identical originally. But over time, because of
Involved.
geographic distance,
Yeah.
they developed enough distinctions in their accent and dialects that now they're like two different languages. But it's not that one came before the other. A lot of people ask me, I get asked all the time, is Hebrew older than Arabic? Is Arabic older than Hebrew? It's not a relevant question. Neither's older than the other, really. They were both the same language. And each one preserved little nuances of the older language. And there are plenty of cases where Hebrew has preserved older nuances of what is called Proto-Semitic. It's the common ancestor of Hebrew and Arabic. There are plenty of instances where Hebrew's preserved things that Arabic has lost. But on a lot of things, Arabic has preserved little nuances as well. Anyway, with Egypt, Arabic just has the shortened form, misr, which means a straight or a narrow place. And Hebrew preserved the double, Misrayim, the two Misrs. And why was it called Misr? Well, you could say figuratively because it's a place of limited knowledge, limited understandings, of narrow mentality. It's an undeveloped, primitive mentality. Really, for the ancient world, it was developed, if we're honest. It was pretty developed. But it was still backwards. You could be developed and oblivious to the need for further development. But more literally, it's quite obvious why it's called Misr. You guys want to take a guess before we look?
It's
Why might?
narrowness.
Yeah. In what sense? Because there's a whole kingdom.
Deb, you're muted.
Go ahead, Deb, before I continue.
It follows the Nile River.
Yeah, it's a whole kingdom, but look how, for the most part, this kingdom is super narrow. Like it's a kingdom that's essentially a string.
Are you trying to share?
Oh, am I not sharing? Sorry. Oh my gosh, we're just all over the place today. So it's essentially a kingdom that is just like dangling by a string. It's literally a narrow place. That's why it's Misr. By extension, you could say the figurative things like, oh, it's a place of hardship, of servitude and slavery. But I'm pretty sure Egypt didn't name itself after slavery. That's like an extension of the meaning that was named or given after the fact. It's just a narrow region of habitable land along the Nile until you get to sub-Saharan Africa. That's why it's called Egypt, because that's what it is. All right. So the Exodus from Egypt, common in Jewish communities, even where people don't know Hebrew, they commonly know this Hebrew reference to Egypt, Yetziat Misraim. They will say, Yetzias Misraim, Yetzias Misraim, the Exodus from Egypt. Yetzias Misraim, Yetziat Misraim. Yalla, namshich. We'll wrap this up and then we'll call it a day. Mi haba bator. Mi haba. Who is next? Mi, who, haba. The next, the coming. Mi
I
haba.
could read the next one, but I will need help with translation.
No, big deal.
Rishabat, Kadosh, no. Kadeshecha.
Okay, so we're going to give you a principle in the chat box. I want you guys to write it down.
Kadeshecha. Okay.
Can you have two shwas in a row? The general rule is
No, probably not.
first shwa is silent. Second shwa is sounded. Qad shakha. Qad shakha.
Kadeshecha. Okay.
Qad shakha. Qad shakha.
Kadeshecha.
Yes, the first shwa should be silent. Second one should be sounded. It's a short eh. Qad shakha. Qad shakha. Don't do what mainstream American Jewish communities do. They may be part of a mainstream Jewish community and not do this. If they're fluent in Hebrew, they usually don't make this mistake. But popular pronunciation is kadshecha, kadshecha. Absolutely not. There's no question that it's not kadshecha. Kadshecha treats this as a segol, which is the exact opposite of a shwa. Shwa means if you even pronounce it, it's unaccented. Kadshecha makes this accented, the exact opposite. So don't do that. So kadshecha. The accent is here. Cha, Kovshecha, not Kovshecha.
Okay.
All right, well, Shabbat Kovshecha, in the Sabbath of your holy, meaning in your holy Shabbat, your holy Sabbath.
Be'achava.
All right, let's relax your tongue, the back of your tongue. Relax and relax the muscles in your throat as you pronounce hey. There should be zero friction.
Be'achiva.
Ahava. Ahava.
Be'achiva.
I can't, a little bit louder, can't hear you, but no friction. There should be zero impinging of the flow of air.
Be'achiva.
All right. Ahava, and with love. It was better. It was better.
Okay.
It was better. You really do not want to say ahava. If you say ahava, that sounds like the modern Hebrew mispronunciation of brotherhood. Ahava.
Okay.
Which shows you how messed up it gets when we mispronounce the letters. It should really be ahwa, ahwa. But because they pronounce vav as a vet and they pronounce het as a chaf, so ahwa becomes achava. But even in modern Hebrew, it'd be sounding like you're saying with brotherhood. It sounds nice, but that's just not what this means.
Okay.
This is with love. Ahava. Zero
I
friction.
gotta work on that.
Yes. You can do it. You have the muscles to do it in your throat. I know you can use them. You can do it. It just takes concerted effort to break the habit.
Beratzon.
All right. So, and with love and with favor. You got this.
Hine, hinechale,
Hold on.
oh,
What is the general rule about a shawah?
oh, silent.
When?
Hin,
Tell us. Why did you say it?
because it's after the first vowel, or
That is
I-
usually the case, but just remember when you're not sure whether a shawah, the two dots on top of each other under a letter, when you're not sure whether they should be a short or whether they should be silent, make it silent. Even if it's a
okay.
mistake, it's better to mistakenly make it silent than to mistakenly make it sound.
Okay. Then hinhalatano.
Perfect. You would sound flawless in modern Hebrew. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yay! I got one right. Just kidding.
All right. Now you got to break it down for us.
Oh no, that's the
What do we
part
do
I'm
first?
not good at it.
Deborah, what do we do first? When we see a new word, we're not sure what it means, but we have something to work with. What is the first step we should do?
Find the prefix and suffix.
Exactly. And if you can find the prefix and suffix, then you can be pretty sure about what the root is.
Mhm.
So what, do we have any
Yes,
possible
we have
prefix?
nu at the end is
Okay.
us or our,
That's right.
and then the he, I can't remember what that one is.
Doesn't mean the, because we have a very common prefix,
Right.
ha, like Hashem, which means the.
It does mean the or it does not? It does not
Well,
because it's
we,
not ha.
Hebrew, we meaning in the Hebrew language, we have a very, very common prefix which is he with the vowel ah under it, ha.
Yeah, and it's not
But
that.
it's not that. And if it's not that, 9 times out of 10, it means causative verb. It's indicating that this is a verb and it's causative. Meaning if nahal, nahala, if that root means inheritance, then if you see the he causative indicator at the beginning, it means cause to inherit.
Cause to inherit. Cause us to inherit.
That's right. Because it's a verb, we know that this should be an us instead of our. Well, that leaves us with another little floater here. What are you doing here, mister?
Ta.
Got
No
overlooked. So what
idea.
does the ta suffix mean when we have a ta suffix?
I don't know. Don't
That
know that.
also indicates verb. Okay? Always. A tav at the end of a word indicates a verb. Can Heather or Victor tell us what does ta suffix mean? 9 times out of 10. 99 times out of 100. If you have a ta at the end of a word. Number one, it tells you it's a verb.
I'm drawing a blank, and Victor had to step out for a minute, so
Okay. How about
it's
you,
all on
Emma?
me.
So ta suffix means you, meaning the person I'm speaking to, means you did this verb in the past. So it indicates past tense, second person. Second person, past tense, masculine, singular. I know that's a mouthful.
It
All
is,
right. It's
it gets very
basically saying
technical.
you did this. You, masculine, you, one person who I am speaking to, did this action. That's what it tells you. We have all this stuff in English also. We just don't usually break it down in English like this because we already know English.
Yeah,
But
that's
it
the
tells
thing.
you,
I have to go and review the things that you do by muscle memory or that you already know without thinking about it.
you're right,
Now
you
you have to
know
think
what it
about it.
is conceptually, you just don't know what to call it with words.
Yeah.
So
You
second
caused us
person
to
means it's the
inherit.
person you're speaking to. Yes, ma'am, I'm listening.
You caused us to inherit.
That's exactly it. And is this you plural you like you are the people of the Lord or you are the American people? Does it mean plural
No,
you or
it's singular.
how do you know?
Because
Because
of what you
ta
just
is
said
always
about the
singular.
tav.
Yeah, ta is always singular. And
Okay.
is it feminine? You should be able to know this. Is it feminine or masculine?
I can't
That's
tell,
right.
but I know from what you said before, it's masculine.
So if it's a T at the end of a verb and no
Mhm.
vowel following it, it would be feminine. Hinhalt. If I said
Oh, that's right.
hinhalt,
That's right.
if I said hinhalt, that would be you cause to inherit, you feminine cause to inherit. So hinhalt, you Deborah, hinhalt to your children. You caused your children to inherit. Victor, you hinhalta to your children. Same meaning, it's just difference of gender. All right, Bo'on Nisayem, we will finish this lesson.
Baruch,
Manuel Bachavod.
Baruch Ata Adonai.
All right, Chitargemu, translate, Chitargemi.
The simple is blessed are you, Lord, our God.
Okay, now let's do it with a deeper meaning. I know it's not always practical to, but there is a much more full meaning. Go ahead.
Baruch,
Most worthy of
yeah,
praise.
most worthy of praise are you.
Yes,
Ata is are you.
right?
Adonai is
Eternal, the absolute existence. This is the only word in Hebrew that means absolute divinity, that it always refers to the true God, always. It's inherent in the word. It's the only such word. All right. Hodaya, would you like to see the Sayam to finish?
Mekadesh Hashabbath.
Beautiful. And we have a dagesh here, so we're going to hold down that consonant sound. Hashabath. Hashabath.
Shabbath.
Right? So instead of Hashabat, Hashabath. That's because the dagesh in the sheen. All right, bo'u netargem. Let's translate.
Shabbat.
Nachon. Let's translate. Mekadesh. Mekadesh means to cause to be
Holy.
holy. So who sanctifies.
The Shabbat, the Sabbath.
That's right. Now we have this on YouTube and Facebook. If you want a real nitty-gritty breakdown of the Kiddush blessing, now you got it.
Can you read it straight through once at a
Sure.
slowish speed?
Sure. Devorah, would you like to read the instructions and then I'll do that? Read the
Sure.
instructions afterward. Without interruption, after saying the blessing over the wine, you say this blessing and then
one then drinks a cheekful of the wine and distributes wine for the rest of those sitting to partake. Everyone washes their hands, each person first reciting Al Natilat Yadayim before washing. Once everyone is again seated, the head of the household recites Hamotzi over a loaf of bread, eats and distributes bread for all those seated to eat.
Yofi. All right, and traditionally we use 2 loaves of bread. Maybe I could fix that in the future. All right, we'll say it. I will say it slowly and then I will say it with a little bit of a melody. All right? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher qiddashanu ورعصاه vanu Shabbat Hodsheh Ba'ahava in Hilon Zikoren Lama Aseh Vereshith Tehillah لمقرأ قادش لمقرأ قادش لمقرأ قادش زاخر لصياف لصياف مصرايم وشباث وشخا هوا ورقصان إن حلطان باروخ أتا أذنوي مقدش الشباث. Now I'll say it all the way with a little bit of a melody. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam אשר קדשנו ורוסובנו שבת קודשה באהבו הנחילנו זיכורן למעשה בראשית תחילה למקרא קדש זכר ליציאת מצרים ושבת קודשך באהבו רוסן הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. You can make it sound even fancier if you want, but I'll leave that to you.
That was beautiful, Rabbi. Thank you.
All right. Namaste. God bless. Any questions before we wrap it up?
No, thank you very much.
My pleasure. You guys have a blessed continuation of your week. Am Yisrael High, defeat the anti-Semites, losers. And Yishtabah Shemo La'ad U'Lenesach Nesachim. May his name be praised forever and ever. Ma'al kol birchotha shirotha wa tushbahotha wa nahamotha da'amiran ba'alama wa imiru. Amen. Beyond all blessing, song, praise, and consolation. And let us say, Amen.
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 B'chavod.
Modeh ani lefanecha, Adonai Elohai. I am grateful for you, O eternal, the powerful authority over me.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it because we've already passed 2 hours.
Okay.
You can go ahead.
Shesamta helki miyoshve beth hamidrash, that you have placed my portion among those who dwell in the house of study. Walo samta helki miyoshve koronoth, and that you have not placed my portion among those who dwell on the street corners. She'ani mashkim wahem mashkimim. I get up early and they get up early. Ani mashkim ledivre Torah. I get up early to matters of Torah. Wahem mashkimim lidvarim batalim, and they get up onto empty matters. Ani omel wahem omelim. I work hard and they work hard. Ani omel unkabel sahar. I work hard and receive reward. Wahem omelim wa'en makabalim sahar. They work hard and do not receive reward. Ani ros wahem rosim. I run and they run. Ani ros l'haye ha'olam haba. I run unto the life to come. Wahem unto the life to come. Wahem rosim liv'er shahath. And they run unto a pit of destruction.
Devorah, would you like to lead us in prayer for the rest of the week? Everybody should be in good health.
Father, we thank you for the time to study and learn your Torah. We ask that you would give us the strength to move forward and have a great week, doing all that we need to accomplish to be ready for Shabbat once again. Give us each health, strength, and blessings in order to do all that we need to accomplish. Amen.
Amen. Kol hakavod.
Amen.
You guys have a Shavua Tov U'Mvarach, a good and blessed week. Thank you for
Shavua Tov.
You can add any questions or comments under the Mishnah Walk video on YouTube or Facebook, or send a swamp of emails to Mr. Victor, and he will let us know what we need to work on. All the best, you guys. Shalom uvracha.
Thank you. Shalom.